when you see the work coming back to you from Matt, both for Werewolves and for Faustian, are you surprised that he doesn't seem to, there is no end to the runway of his ideas?
No, without wanting to blow too much smoke up Matt's ass, like from the moment I've ever met him, like, he's always been a hard worker. And there hasn't really been any occasion that springs to mind where a workload has been placed in front of them and then everyone's sitting around going, where's Matt? What's going on? Sending messages, come on, dude, what's happening? Where is it? It's very much the opposite. So and that goes just across all things. So yeah, no, short answer, I'm not surprised.
Greetings, Legion, and welcome to episode 283 of Into the Necrosphere. I am very pleased to welcome back to the show this week my good friends Sam Bean and Matt Wilcock of Werewolves, the Antichrist Imperium, and Faustian. The new Werewolves album, The Ugliest Of All, drops on September the 19th through Back on Black Records. Easily their best album to date. That was up for discussion over the course of about 90 minutes or so that we spent together. We also spoke about the recent reissue of the Antichrist Imperium debut album. We got an update on what's going on with Faustian, their black metal band. We got a bit existential for obvious reasons. It is an absolutely superb conversation. It's coming your way very shortly. But before we get to that, we need us some unsanctioned filth. Getting our juices flowing this week is a band out of Melbourne, Australia. Carrior Hexus is their name. Their debut demo, Graven Odes, came out in February of this year, and this is a track off of that for you right now. This is Iron Redoubt. Kicking us off with some unsanctioned filth this week, that was Carrior Hexus from their debut demo, Graven Odes. The song is Iron Redoubt, and the link to their Bandcamp, as always, will be in the description to the podcast. So head over there, buy yourself some music. If you're a tape collector, I believe that they are selling a cassette of the demo as well. That could be pretty cool in anybody's collection. Make sure you show them some love and support, and when you do, you let them know that it was old Jackson at Into the Necrosphere who sent you. Friends, I am a card-carrying member of the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse, a conglomerate of elite content creators dedicated to crushing mediocrity wherever we find it. We kick off your week every Monday with Brandon Legion and Horrorwolf 666. On a Tuesday, yours truly casts hexes and slays poses right here on Into the Necrosphere. I will give you guys an update later on in the show on my visa woes and Beyond the Gates. I will also let you guys know of a couple of pretty exciting guests that I've got coming up in the not-too-distant future, so stick around for that. But on a Wednesday, we've got Sensei Mike Hill and Everything Went Black. We also have the great Cheyenne from the band Trivax, the Middle Eastern Marauder himself, and Iblis Manifestations. He has a brand new fitness video series that he's posting on the Iblis Manifestations YouTube channel. It's called Trial by Fire, and I happen to feature on episode 2, so make sure you catch that. On a Thursday, we have the return of Sensei Mike Hill, and he is joined by his co-hosts, the Outlaw Mike Scondado, the Professor Jeff Kashid. They do Necromaniacs, where they review old and new horror movies, one of my very favorite podcasts of the week. And as it happens, the Mike's Hill and Scondado are also my go-to guys when it comes to 666 countdowns. Last week, we did the 666 Thrash Countdown special. Lots of great feedback for that, so thank you very much. And those guys are definitely going to be back on the podcast doing some more of it in the not-too-distant future. Wrapping up the Horseman schedule on a Thursday and again on a Sunday, we got the Sinister Minister, the Reverend Carl Hikara, taking you on a curated journey through the dark, the weird, the arcane, and the esoteric with his podcast, Soul Knox. Make sure that you don't miss it. Make sure you're following us on the socials. And for those of you guys that do follow us all and that do show support, that do share the episodes, massive thank you. Stick around when I'm done talking to Matt and Sam, because it is news rant time. And not only do I have a bruising swirly of the week coming the way of a group of people this week, but I'm also going to be listening to new tracks by Imperialist. We've got, who else have we got? Ofermod. We've got Internal Bleeding. We've got Tombs. We've got a bunch of fucking great bands. We're going to talk a load of shit, as we always do on the weekly news rant. For those of you guys that normally stick around for that, you know what's in store. Right now, though, sit back and enjoy as I welcome back to Into the Necrosphere my very good friends, Sam Bean and Matt Wilcock of Werewolves.
We've suddenly stumbled onto a very random topic that I fucking love. So we were talking
first,
before I hit record. We were talking about old computers, and we got onto Commodore 64 soundtracks. So I 100% agree with you. The music on some of those games was fucking awesome. I mean, like, I had when I was like 6-7 years old, probably as big of an influence on me as metal music would have. But what were the ones that you liked the most?
Oh God, probably some of the earlier Rob Hubbard stuff, like the soundtracks he did for the Monty Mole games, especially I think Monty on the Run. That was amazing, that one. But there was also another game called Parallax, and I forget who did the music for that, if it was Ben Kingsley or someone else. But it's the most pumping fucking soundtrack. It makes you just want to take absolutely everyone and everything on. It's so almighty. I still listen to it. Like there's something special about what the SID chip, which was in the Commodore 64, sort of like did back in those days. It had this real almost kind of like sharp delay between like left and right, which, I was a Sinclair Spectrum boy, so anything more than like one sound channel to me kind of blew me away. But it had this like sort of SID chip sound, which was almost like a really fast kind of almost delay, or almost like like a rotary effect, but it was kind of like with real sharp attack. And it's just like it's really good. If anyone is like, what the fuck is he on about, just go to YouTube and look up Parallax C64 soundtrack, and you'll get a taste of what I'm about. I think the other one that I really got into was The Last Ninja as well. Yeah, it probably didn't hurt that I wanted to be a ninja when I was a little boy. So
ditto.
yeah.
I thought because I was also a very big fan of bodybuilders. I had a friend, I was friends with a lot of older people through the church, and the one bloke was hugely into bodybuilders, so he'd have, when I'd go visit him, he's posters of Dorian Yates and everybody up on his wall. And I had in my mind this idea, and we're talking like I'm 6-7 years old now. If I become a bodybuilder and a ninja, then I'd be invincible, because I'd have technique but also strength.
I rule the world,
basically. But Rob Hubbard, he did do one of my favorite Commodore 64 soundtracks for Commando.
Oh yes,
that's like, whenever I think of the Commodore 64, that's one of the first ones I think of. And then Neil Brennan did the soundtrack to probably my favorite Commodore 64 game, which was Fist 2: The Legend Continues. And if you go onto YouTube, you can see people do whole playthroughs of it. But the music on that song on that game is so atmospheric. And so like I've often listened to it and I've gone like, you could bring this somehow into a metal band, like elements of this, and it would sound fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's got a very powerful sound to it. Like the very first song in like The Last Ninja, like, is just the synth it's got going in the background is just like, it's tough as. But I think any of the bands that sort of like have a crack at doing that sort of thing do it as kind of like, we're just joking, we're just being ironic, Mario, like sort of thing in the background is kind of like, no, it's tough. You got to make it tough.
Yeah.
It's funny actually, like talking about this now, because like I remember when I first got into it, I'm not sure if you got this bit in the interview, but I was talking about how I used to record like game soundtracks onto tape.
You've by the way, you've stumbled onto an incredibly scintillating conversation here about video game soundtracks, specifically Commodore 64 soundtracks. So sorry, Sam, you were saying?
Well, I remember getting rubbish for it at the time. This would have been in the 80s. Like, it was like, look at him, nerd, he's listening to computer music, and it's like, fuck, how the turntables.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of kids nowadays that like they exclusively listen to video game soundtracks, and I mean now if we do, we were talking about Elden Ring before we hit record. It's a full score. It's not, no one's doing any more. No one's doing Commodore 64 music, but I think Commodore 64 music had more. In some ways, it had more imagination to me than than a lot of stuff that happens now. A lot of stuff that happens now, it's exceptional, but it's kind of exceptional because it's got the same production values as a movie. But the Commando soundtrack, the Last Ninja soundtrack, another one that Rob Hubbard did that I remember really well, because I was also into skateboarding when I was young, Skate or Die, which was fucking brilliant.
Yeah. No, the dude's a genius. I'd love to know where he ended up. Like, well, I obviously don't love to know that much. Otherwise, I would have just jumped online and looked it up at some point. But you're right. The Elden Ring soundtrack, I swear to God, that gets me from about a 0 to about a 30 degree. Like, just that opening thing over the credits. It's fabulous. But also, I think half the reason why a lot of those older soundtracks are like, I reckon, quite often a lot better is just, I think a lot of art works better when it's got restrictions or limitations that it has to work like between, and that's when people's imaginations really kick in and they try and do a lot with the little that they've got. So anyway, we've got to think of a way to draw Matt into this.
we do. Matt, did you play?
What I can add to that is, if you're talking about video game sort of soundtracks and music, is fucking Mario Brothers. everything from Mario, like whoever the composer is for Super Mario Brothers, all the way from the first one up until now, is just a fucking genius, because those songs are stuck in my head all the time. I mean, I play Mario fairly regularly, I guess, so it's there. But yeah,
This
I mean,
would probably
all
be a
that's
good time to tell you. This would probably be a good time to tell you just before you jumped on.
Isn't it?
I was ripping on people like who are into the Mario soundtracks. I'm so sorry.
Well, in fairness, I've just taken a look at it now. So the composer is called Koji Kondo, but the theme was actually included in the American National Recording Registry in 2023 for cultural significance.
Yeah,
So there you go.
There you go.
You are right though. I mean, it's not necessarily my speed, but it's a I mean, it's a song that, I mean, anybody who's anybody, when they think of video game music, the first thing they think of is the Super Mario song.
Yeah.
Yeah. But welcome to the podcast, gentlemen. And I was thinking about this before we started recording. Why is it that any time that you guys feature on the show, it is either catastrophe of global scale either happens right before or right after? So, like we had this slight delay, and then in recording this, the next thing you know, Ozzy's dead. So it's like
Satan.
I'm about to say, and we've had the Ukraine war kick off. I think 2 days after Sam, you and I did one. It's just every single time we record, something fucking horrific happens. What on a more serious note, what were your reactions to the news about Ozzy Osbourne passing away?
I saw it on on fucking Facebook yesterday or whenever it was, and it kind of tugs at the heartstrings a bit, like I thought it was amazing that he did that show like 2 weeks prior, and he was like he performed reasonably well for someone of his sort of condition and health and age and all his afflictions and problems. His performances were incredible, really, and I think it's pretty poignant that he maybe did that last hurrah, and then perhaps on a sort of maybe an unconscious level, he sort of let go. I don't know. No one knows what's going on behind the scenes, like what kind of state he was really in. But to do something of that caliber and then 2 weeks later to sort of be gone, it sort of makes you think, I guess. It's reflective, about it.
The only thing that would have been cooler is if he had dropped dead like halfway through the encore, and was just like fucking had it.
I'm sure he had said in interviews at some point that he hoped that he would die on stage. Kind of like Lemmy. But I definitely agree with what you said, Matt. There was a sad kind of poetry to it, and I was reflecting on why everybody is taking this one particularly hard. And yes, he was a beloved figure, and I understand all of that, but I think there's something more to it. And something I come back to is, I think when somebody who's been a constant in all of our lives for as long as all of us have been alive, you've always, whether you've been a fan of his or not, he's always been in the background. You couldn't open a magazine back in the day without at least a photo of him in there. Ozzy was just always there. When a consistent when a consistent figure like that gets taken away, I think it reminds people that, number one, of their own mortality. And I don't really care how what people say about I'm not scared to die, or I don't give a shit. I don't agree with that. I think most people, when they really think about it, I think there is a anxiety to it to some degree. If you have anything to live for, there should be, quite frankly. And then I think the other thing is they realize that we're entering this phase now where, in rapid succession, unfortunately, most of our heroes are going to go this way. The old guard. If we can go down the list: Angus Young, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons. Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, it's all going to happen within probably, Rob Halford. It'll happen within the next 5 to 10 years. And when we're done with that cycle, the next generation starts, Metallica, Slayer. And then when we're done with that, then we're on deck. And that's a fucking frightening thing to think about. And I think it's an overwhelming thing to think about, which is why I feel like, you've seen this. What I think is of everyone I've ever, every famous musician that's ever passed away, I don't think I've seen this kind of outpouring of grief, at least judging by what I saw on social media.
I think it was. I think it's a step. It's a level higher than when Lemmy died. Like, I mean, I remember Lemmy. Like, I remember that day, and I sort of watched the funeral, the service, or the memorial, whatever, online. And it was, it's crazy. It's crazy to think that he's, it's crazy to think of Lemmy, even though like it was on the cards, obviously, with Lemmy. But it's, I don't know, it's the end of an era. It's kind of weird. It's weird to think about, I guess because they have been there forever, doing what they do as a constant,
Well, if you think about it, when you got into metal, Ozzy was there. When you were, any books you saw about not listening to the bad satanic heavy metal music, he's top of the list. Like, he's just been he's been an omnipresent figure in a sense, certainly for my whole life. And the fact that he's not there, like I said, that suddenly reminds you, like, with this everything, no matter how, no matter how immortal you think it is, everything is going to come to an end. On the topic of the show, I read something that I can't 100% confirm that it's true or not, but it would seem to be consistent with the performance that you mentioned earlier. Apparently, one of the decisions that he took ahead of the show was to be completely off painkillers for the day, because painkillers makes him slur his words. There was, he was concerned about his performance. If you're stricken with Parkinson's to the degree that he was, the level of pain that you're in is absolutely extraordinary. So for him to have, and if this is true, I should add, but for him to have chosen to forego painkillers and perform in that intense amount of chronic pain for a day, I think that really gives you the measure of the man. I feel. I think that put the performance in a different light to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about. I mean, maybe that's true. Maybe it's not true. Maybe who knows? But it was pretty. I think that whole. I mean, I watched. I didn't stream it at the time, but in the following days, I've probably watched 90% of the performances, and I think probably the only one I haven't watched is Metallica. Just fucking bored of Metallica. I don't care anymore. I think for fuck about Metallica. It's just boring. But
I always love 90s, like early 90s Metallica, late 80s, like mid to late 80s Metallica. But
that's a fucking long time ago, though.
No, I mean, it's just I want to think of James as beer drinking James, drunk James.
You want to nowadays, not Metallica.
Yeah, nowadays James. He seems like a lovely bloke, but I don't get the same, I don't get the same rush that I used to get when I saw him. It would be like seeing Stone Cold Steve Austin, and suddenly he goes, "Guys, I'm no longer drinking beers. I'm not flipping off the crowd. I'm not saying, oh hell yeah. I'm not gonna give anyone the Stone Cold Stunner and shake their hand and say I love you." I'll vanquish my opponents in the ring with using love.
On the one hand, it's kind of like, well, we're all glad you decided to live, Stone Cold.
Yeah.
But, on the other hand, you're also like, fuck, you know what you want when you respond to the thugs, to the hooligans, and the guys who are just, if you saw them walking down the street, you'd like draw the blinds and like hide behind the furniture. I'm old enough to remember when that was Metallica. It's just like. You'd see a dude wearing a Metallica t-shirt, high top sneakers, and those tight black jeans. It's like, oh fuck, here we go. So yeah, I know what Matt means. Like, it's, I don't like this modern sort of like version that everyone loves. I like the one that a lot of people feared and hated at the time.
Yeah, the modern version is the modern version feels very sanitized. It feels very safe, and that wasn't what it used to excite me about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I always have the greatest of respect for them, even though, I take every opportunity on the news rant to point out their failings as well. But there'll always be part of me that loves them. It's the same as Slayer. No matter what Slayer does, if they ever even if they decided to come back and do an album, there'll still be a part of me. There'll be a part of me that knows that it's not going to be good. It'll be a disappointment. There'll always be a part of me that hopes they're going to put something out. You're going to listen to it. You're going to go, Jesus, you redid Show No Mercy.
We can only hope.
Yeah. Well, this is so. Yes, this actually is a nice way to angle into talking about werewolves, and I've as you've probably gathered, if you watch this podcast, I am completely. I wouldn't say obsessed, but I'm certainly deeply fascinated with the concept and the idea of creativity, especially as musicians grow older, and the majority of people I speak to, you can tell when they start to let the mask slip a little bit, they'll be quite open and admit that they find it as they get older, they find it harder to write music, they find it harder to come up with stuff that's creative and things that are a closer approximation of their prime than say what they're doing presently. You guys don't have that issue because I got The Ugliest of All. After I thought you had reached your peak on Die For Us, and you sit there and go like I'll listen to the album when you guys send it to me, and I'll go, fuck, how on earth are they going to top this? And then The Ugliest of All comes, and it goes like, let's clear the decks. this is the best thing we've ever done. How in the fuck does this like? I don't know if you can give away the secret sauce recipe, Matt, but like, how does your creative cycle work? Like, how do you just not run out of ideas?
I don't know. It's just, I think there's just, I mean, I always just joke and say that there's fucking death metal running through my veins, and that's it. But it just fucking I just do it every time, and don't get me wrong, every single time it's like fucking I don't know about this one. The only time that I tell you, before, when I remember me and Sam were driving to where we sort of rehearse, not that we rehearse much, but where we do photo shoots and jam with Dave and all that. We were going to film the film clip for the last album for Die For Us, and whilst we're driving there, we're listening to just the demos, like just the guitar tracks for this album, and both of us were like, fucking hell, this is going to be a good one, isn't it? It just had a bit of a feeling that it's like, oh, cool, this next one's going to be exciting. Like we knew Die For Us was a winner. We knew we'd hit the nail on the head. But yeah, this one, I thinking back to even before the drummers were recorded, it was like, fucking yeah, this one's good. And I've got the next one's written, and I think Dave's he's probably gonna do the drums for it in September. And I've been listening to the demos of that recently, and it's like, fucking hell, there's some good moments there as well. I don't know. The only thing I'm cautious of now is not, because I'll just start recording stuff, and I've got to be careful that I don't do anything that's glaringly exactly similar to anything they've already done. So it's a little bit trickier, but I mean, I don't know, just do it, There's a lot of, the biggest enemy of fucking anything is procrastination, isn't it, People just fucking don't do anything. So if you actually sit down and try and get started, then even if nothing happens then, it's going to happen the next day. Or if you get one little fucking idea, then expand upon it. And I always also find that if I can record something that makes me grimace when I listen back to it, or makes you sort of like clench your fucking fingers, or, like, that there's darkness there, or some sort of fucking savagery. It's like, we're in. It's good. It's going to work. I can tell. So, I don't know. There's no secrets. It's just fucking hard work, man. No one does it anymore.
Sam, how are you experiencing all of this? Because obviously I know you do lyrics and things like that, but you know, when you see the work coming back to you from Matt, both for Werewolves and for Faustian, are you surprised that he doesn't seem to, you know, there is no end to the runway of his ideas?
No. No. I can't think of a witty, pithy answer to this one. It's literally just no. It's like another album has just landed on my inbox. Where is the sweet release of death?
Yeah, deadline. You have until the end of the week to record the lyrics.
Yeah, no, that used to be like, I think, for the first 5 albums, and now I sort of like, I'm blessed with a bit more time, both for writing and also in the studio. So yeah, I'm slowing down, I think, out of everyone. Like it takes me a bit longer these days to get stuff done, but without wanting to blow too much smoke up Matt's ass, like from the moment I've ever met him, like, you know, he's always been a hard worker. And there hasn't really been any occasion that springs to mind where a workload has been placed in front of them and then everyone's sitting around going, where's Matt? What's going on? Sending messages, come on, dude, what's happening? Where is it? It's very much the opposite. So like, and that goes just across all things. So yeah, no, short answer, I'm not surprised. I don't know, probably the motivation I give him is like, I'm like, well, you know, if you can't come up with enough songs for this album, I could always write one. And that's probably got him sort of like going, oh, fuck, I better write some more riffs. Yeah.
Sam's riffs are good, but they're just a bit happy sometimes. So I have to sift through them and go, right, it's too happy.
Kind of major chords in extreme music.
Bad times, man, you know.
Have you? So Matt, has it always been have you always taken the same approach to songwriting, or is it something that? Because I think we've spoken before. I know you mentioned stuff like the Antichrist Imperium. Those were harder records to write, and obviously they're also harder because there's various factors that you need to balance in there. But in terms of actual music writing, as your creative process evolved over time, like talk me through how you stimulate yourself to have ideas. Did you walk around, for example, with ideas in your head, or is it a case of I sit down, start playing, and you know it seems to sort of stem from there?
It's probably a bit of both. Sometimes I can sing something in my head and sort of hear it somewhat, and then it's just a matter of finding it on guitar and making it sort of work. There can also just be inspiration from anything and anywhere. You know, like I listen to music all day. Like at work, I'll just have, you know, I'll have music on all day long, and I'll listen to different stuff, you know, not all different genres, but I'll listen to different things, you know. And anything from obviously, I mean, today this completely fucks up what I'm going to try and say, but
I listen to Panzer Division Marduk for a change.
I listened to today I listened to Hell Awaits and Transylvanian Hunger, and
of course it is.
I listened to Rain in Blood. But on a more varied day, I could listen to let me have a look at my fucking Fleetwood Mac, Heart, Joe Bonamassa, blues guitarist, Necrophage. I listened to Necrophagus today. I listened to Covenant today. All these fucking albums have been around forever. But, you know, like I listened to Live, Malevolent Creation. So I mean, when I say I listen to different sorts of music, I'm obviously fucking lying because everything is just fucking original.
Yeah, you know, you had Fleetwood Mac in there.
Yeah. You know, there's a few other sort of more guitar sort of people, like there's this dude, Christone Kingfish, like a blues guitarist. I've listened to quite a lot of him of late. I listen to new things that come out. I've been right into that new Cryptopsy. So anyway, even if they are all the same sort of music, it's like little ideas and bits and pieces. They get lodged in your head, like be it a stab or be it a riff or a beat or whatever, anything. But like, you know, if you're listening to music all day long, you know, bits here and there stick with you, and that's an inspiration, you know. I guess it's a bit like how AI works, you know. It listens to fucking everything that's there and then just steals everything.
And comes up with an album it calls Drogvale.
Yeah, well, that's it. But you know, it's all just everything gets soaked in, and then, you know, maybe I have it in my head, or maybe I just pick up guitar and start making noise, or I've got an idea of, right, this needs something dissonant and horrible, or, you know, Sam said to me for what was it? I think when the most recent Immortal album came out, the first single was War Against All. And in our little group chat, band sort of group chat, you know, when that came out, I sort of sent the link because I thought it was great. I love that first single. And Sam's like, write a triplet song. So lo and behold, there was a triplet song just based on him saying that. And it wound up being the title track of this album, of the new Werewolves. So, you know, someone could just plant the seed and then it'll come out. Or I can fumble around on a guitar until something happens, or I can watch Friday the 13th, and when the dude in the wheelchair gets the machete wedged in his face, the fucking darkest riff comes to me, you know.
I was going to ask you, like, what's the most random thing that's ever inspired you to write a riff?
I don't know. I have to think about it. Ask Sam a question and I'll try and think of something.
All right. So
I can answer that. I can answer that same question. Big Brother. The
oh,
TV
really?
show. That was back in the day. That was my way of writing riffs. Because you know, the first season was good. It was like people largely getting along together. But like a season or two into it, those fuckwit fucking producers like got their hands on it and started introducing dickheads into the mix. So you're trying to you like it's
isn't it?
yeah. So and it's the perfect thing to have on in the background. So I would be just like practicing guitar, and I'd have Big Brother the Dickhead remix like sort of in the background. When someone would just be like pissing you fucking off, and you just getting angrier and angrier, and you just kind of, to someone just like does the ultimate like fucks you right off, and you're trying to write the ultimate sort of like I'm pissed off riff. Yeah, I always found it was really good. If I try and do that to a movie, like the movie takes your attention, you know, you need something that's background but still engages you a little bit emotionally, like, or, you know, atmospherically, I guess.
If you use a computer metaphor, it's kind of it needs to be something that uses about 10% of your processing power, just enough to trigger the other 90% to kick into gear and actually do something productive.
The reptilian brain. That's what you need.
Just on the just staying with you, Sam. I mean, you know, we've spoken before about the issues that you had with your vocal cords, and obviously the surgery you got, and how you're sounding now. And again, you know, I strongly feel this, and I think when I sent my notes to Matt on the album, I said it as well. I mean, this is your best vocal performance by a very, very significant margin.
I've got a secret. Yeah.
So yeah. Well, let's hear it.
We used 2 vocal recording sessions this time instead of 1. So normally when I do my stuff for Werewolves, I do it all in one day. I'll do the bass, and I'll just like do that in the first hour or so, and then the rest of the day is like doing all the vocals. And to a lot of people, they'll sound like bullshit, but before I go in, all the lyrics are written. All the vocals have been demoed. They've been sent to Matt and Dave so that they can go, yes, or that doesn't work, or whatever. But at least they've been sort of demoed, and then they'll have been like airbrushed by me in a bit, and I'll be like muttering at work or in my car or whatnot for another few weeks. So by the time I turn up in the studio, like I know what I'm doing, and I've broken it down. Like it's so fucking office work, where I've got like a sort of grid pattern that I've written, like with all the songs and which vocals for which songs, and in the order which will work best with the voice. So yeah, that's the way I've been able to get through one day. But this time around, I was kind of like, I think when I finished Die For Us, or it might have even been the one before it. I've lost count of them all. But I sort of got to the end of it, and I was like, well, that sort of worked well, but I reckon it would have been a little bit better if I had a bit more time, or if I had a second sesh to do things. So I started indulging in that a bit, and that really is the secret. So like I put stuff down, and I remember when I did the vocals for The Ugliest of All, the first pass wasn't that good. My voice was scratchy and breaking a bit, like there's again some sort of like random thing floating around the household, so I wasn't exactly sick, but the voice wasn't firing on all cylinders.
Wasn't optimal.
Yeah, so I got as much done as I could in the studio, and I was really lucky. I got to go back, I think 2 or 3 weeks later, something like that. So when I came in, not only was the voice better, but a lot of the stuff had been done, and it was a case of like we'd listen through, and anything that wasn't like really, really hitting, I got the chance to just redo, and I'd already had that like full strength practice run in the studio as well. So, and a bit of time to think about, that thing I tried didn't really work, or this section, let's just swap those words around. I remember Pete Helmkamp talking about like writing sort of the lyrics and everything for The Inexorable one time, and how he's just talking about like the weeks he'd take just moving one word or chopping one syllable from those screeds of his. But like just how he'd do that just to make them work. And sometimes it is just a case of like, adding or dropping a syllable, or just dropping a line or something that makes things that much better. The worst thing is now I'm into multi-sessions. I've sort of like come away from The Ugliest of All going, I really could have done with one more session to like just make it even better.
And you know what? The fuckedest thing about you doing that was you had done that first session, and so Sam goes to see a guy, Jack, in Adelaide, and tracks everything. And like, this is probably the 7th or 8th recording that we've done with Jack involved in either bass or vocals or both or whatever. Anyway, so he does the sessions, sends them over to me, and I'll just load them all in. I'll get them prepped for Joe, who does the mix, and I'll go through and just do any little tiny adjustments or whatever, just technical shit more than anything. So I did all that, and I sent them all off for mix, and then Sam, you were saying, actually, there's a few bits I'm going to redo, and I kind of misinterpreted what you said, and I think 90. Well, you had done a vast majority of it again, and I couldn't be fucked dealing with editing and sending it all off again. I'm like, fucking don't. It's fine, man. Don't worry about it. And you're like, look, really?
And I'd already done it, and I was sitting in the studio going, it's so much better. Yeah. You've got to use this lot.
Yeah, I just couldn't be fucked with it. So anyway, I did the right thing and said, all right, send it. I'll sort it all out again and send it through. So I got the second batch of vocals, which was, I guess, the majority of it was new again. And I listened to it, and I listen to it in a solo. Like, I make a point of not listening to it in the context of a song, because I don't want to, like, that surprise is quite good when we get the mix back and I'm sort of hearing it for the first time, as opposed to listening to it all with the music and really getting a vibe for how it sounds. So I listen to it generally solo, just with the click track or maybe a bit of drums really quiet, so I can hear the timings and that. And it was a good thing that I rejigged it and sent it off again, because the second performance was fucking stunning. The delivery was fucking demonic, and I can hear, listening to it solo, like, I'd be sitting there just with the headphones on, fucking piecing it all together, and I'd just start laughing because I could hear him screaming. I don't know, for example, in one song, he screamed the words "fucking nerds."
I do pick those up as well. It's like, wimps, nerds. That's just brilliant.
Yeah, so I'm glad you redid it, and I'm glad I took the time to fucking take the second version of it and send that off.
Well, I was
That's
looking
good.
at the
Yeah.
when you sent me this album, I actually did something that I haven't done. I don't think for anybody that sent me music. Like as I was listening to it, I was typing notes on what I'm hearing, and the one of the things that stood out to me most was on Unoriginal Sun. I wrote to Matt that you've become so good, Sam, at the timing and the aggression thing combined. Like, like the way that rappers get into a flow state with like the best rappers, the ones we like, when they get into a flow state with their vocals, you're kind of at that level now. Like the way that your vocals flow, the rhythm, it's just it to me, it's complete and utter elite tier. And Unoriginal Sun, to me, that's one of the high points of your performance on this record for sure.
Oh, cheers, man. No, Unoriginal Sin was probably like the hardest one to do. It was the one I did the lyrics and vocals to, or wrote the lyrics and vocals to last. And to be honest, I was completely like, when Matt had sent the song through originally, like I thought it was going to be almost like a strapping young lad, relentless kind of thrash beat. And when Dave turned it into that halftime stomp, I was kind of like, I was so wrong-footed. I was just like, fuck, what do I do with this? And it really took a while to, I guess, get out of that gear. And I remember the moment it turned around. I was at a festival here in Adelaide, and there was a band called Pizza Death playing, and they opened with a song which had like exact same halftime beat, and there was just, I think, one line where it was like da 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 kind of thing, and I was like, oh, I fucking got it. I think like Dave was there that day as well. I've turned to him and I was like, dude, fuck, I'm gonna steal just what he did. I'm gonna like use that for like one of our songs. It's gonna be great.
You edit that out, yeah, so we don't have to pay any fucking royalties or anything to them.
Some of that big Werewolves money. On that topic, actually, just sidestepping for a minute, Die For Us was that was the first independent album that you've done. What was how was that experience? If you go through the whole album cycle, putting the album out yourself, taking care of, basically handling your own business, as opposed to the previous records. What were what were the learnings from it? What were the things that you thought were better or worse than being on a label?
Let me see.
I'll jump in here and I'll say that fucking Dave did the bulk of the work, without a fucking shadow of a doubt. He's the one that he has the business hat on, and he does all the hard work. I mean, Sam was probably would be more involved than me, especially with press and all that sort of shit. So yeah, but I think Dave was the sort of the architect of the self-release. But we got, we wound up getting some help. I think I'd spoken to we were trying to, so we had Australian distribution sorted out, and we had somewhat of US sorted out, and that was just through a particular online sort of merch site, for lack of a better term. And we were struggling with what to do with Europe, and I think I might have this wrong, but I think I emailed Connor, Apocalyptic Witchcraft, and just sort of said to him, mate, have you got any sort of you got any advice for how we could get European distro up and running? Because we've got America, we've got the States sorted out, we've got Australia and New Zealand sorted out. And he put us in touch with Plastic Head, or Back on Black, I guess you could say, in regards to sorting out European distribution. And as it turned out, the head honcho, if you will, Plastic Head, fucking loved it. So he was instrumental in spreading it far and wide. I think I've got that give or take sort of right, yeah, Sam?
Yeah, so what happened, like Dave obviously, did a lot of it, but we did get onto Connor earlier on, and he straightened out like that not only that distro part, but I'd been handed the task of like press for the album. But like you need basically a press or PR outfit like working for you for that. If you send things out, and I've experienced this before, it's like with previous independent releases that I've done myself. If you just do that by yourself as a member of the band, no one gives a fuck. And you get a whole bunch of bounced emails and like mailed out CDs and all the rest of it. So
just stop pausing there for a second. When you say no one, define no one.
Pretty much. Well, here's an example. The Senseless, I released last couple of albums by myself. It's just like an indulgent personal project that I usually drag one or two people in to help me with. But the last time I did that, I had a list of about, it would have been about 60 or 70 magazines, webzines, whatnot, and about another 40 or so people who had reviewed or interviewed me in the past. And I did mail outs as well as emails, and I think I got about 2 or 3 responses out of all of that. So that was a drop off from, I think, the first release, where that one was through a label. But it was a big drop off as well. And that was like people I also sort of knew personally. Like it was just, it did not go down well. And
People you knew personally that weren't coming back to you?
Yeah, it was very strange. But it was also a little bit of I guess a learning experience for me, which is like, you know, fuck your relationship. If you are doing music industry stuff and putting out a CD and or an album, and you want people to actually talk about it and tell other people, hey, there's an album going, just being made sane enough. And if you've got a track record, that's not enough as well. Like honestly, these days and those days as well, you need that PR outfit. And there's no way around it. Or you can always, if you're a bit more get up and go, you can create your own, I guess, PR body. You know, band one, yours, but create sort of like, you know, the business, the whole email and all the rest of it, and do it that way, and it might go down a bit better. But yeah, it could be a lot of work to find out that no, that's not the case. So anyway, long story short, like Connor gave us a list of like different PRs to try. And that was, here's the other funny bit of that learning experience is, and this is for the Werewolves Die For Us. I didn't realize how much a lot of them cost. And, you know, we've been spoiled. Like we've been on prosthetic for a few years, and they'd always done a pretty good job of, you know, putting us out there and getting people involved and putting us in touch with people and getting us press. And a couple of the outfits that I contacted even contained names of people I think we've worked with like previously through prosthetic with Werewolves, and yeah, unusable. So we found like an outfit, I think they're called Imperative PR, and they're just basically kind of like a mail out PR agency. But enough people use them so that they're actually going to not fully blank them, which is, yeah, again, like one of the things, if there's anyone starting a music, like who's listening to this, God help you need to be listening to something better. But a lot of the music industry, and this has just been my experience, like, and a lot of this opinion comes from, I guess, from Time and Berserker, is when you do anything, you need other big names behind you so that people feel that there's some consequence for either blanking you or fucking whoever. Yeah, I see the hard go Berserker had, like trying to do stuff in the US and the US tours, and I see how well a band like King Parrot is doing through the US with Phil Anselmo sort of kind of attached to them. Yeah, and I think it's a quite a bit of a different story. And the saying goes, just as I say, when you're just like sending out emails and CDs and stuff, like you need that name or that organization behind you so that places just don't go, fuck off, whoever you are, not interested. So yeah. Anyway, that's a long answer to an easy question. Yeah, it was a fair bit of work. Those were probably like the biggest lessons that we got out of it. And it kind of worked out really well in that it led us to the relationship we've got now with Back on Black and PhD Plastic Head. So yeah, that wouldn't have happened, I guess, if Connor hadn't come through and just like gone, "Hey, I've got a European solution for you." Like, it's worked out very well.
Yeah, I was curious about that because again, I mean, you know my view is in an ideal world, with the exception of like one or two PR people, I don't work with anybody from the industry. I don't want to. I want to have, and the idea of the Horseman feeds into this. I want to have a ecosystem that hopefully benefits the people that I like and whose music I like and I want to promote. And there should be no, I'm genuinely doing this because I want to give back to the scene, but also because I love doing it. A lot of the people I've become friends with, I genuinely believe in what they do artistically, and I maybe it's like, if I try and articulate it, it's maybe the fact that I hate the horde mentality of the music scene and the metal scene so much that I would do anything I possibly can to destroy it. Like, I can't fucking stand it. I can't stand seeing every single year the same shit bands on Decibel's top 40 list that they curate in October, or the same bullshit being pushed in Metal Hammer and stuff like that. And the thing is, I've seen how it works behind the scenes. And any of those people can try and challenge me on this, they are wrong, because I've seen it firsthand. They get paid for a lot of that stuff, and if they don't get paid, they get flown to places, they get invited to events, and they know that if they don't toe the line, they won't be invited again. That's why it occurs. And so that's why a bunch of far more deserving music falls by the wayside, because the Opeth is coming out, he growls on 2 songs, let's go get excited about it. And it's like, it's this substandard fucking dog shit. So yeah, that's just a side rant. But I mean, I truly, with every episode I do, every single thing, especially as the podcast has grown, that's the number one mission, is to vanquish the horde mentality. I don't care if people listen to the podcast and they like nothing that I know, no band that I'm talking about. I don't think that'd be possible, but at the very least, if you're getting an opinion from me, it's because I genuinely think it. Like, I'm not promoting anything on here that I think sucks. No one has paid me to do anything. I actively turn down money from places. If places have paid for me to go there, I said, no thanks, I'll pay for myself. I don't want to, like, if I'm going to be on the Gates next week. When I go, paying for my own hotel, paying for my own flights. The only thing that we're getting is a ticket to the event. But if the event sucks, I will come back and say it sucks and say I'm never going again. I don't think it will.
I was jealous to see you going to, speaking of events, I was jealous to see you going to Fortress.
Dude. Yeah, that was this year. That was fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. I no question, my favorite festival experience I've ever had.
It
such a great vibe to it. So many fucking good bands. And I did meet your homie. So came within inches of interviewing Jamie. I mean, literally, like, I was like on standby, like, with the camera was all set up, everything was ready to go. And then, they had just come off stage. So understandably, he was a bit spent. It's not as though he doesn't perform a very physical show. But he was very apologetic about it, and we spoke for about 15, 20 minutes. Super, super nice guy. And I just said to him, anytime you want, you always have an open invite to come on the podcast. But dude, Fortress was incredible. Beyond the Gates is going to be incredible too. I'll tell you one thing that's going to happen, that by the time this episode drops, maybe I'll have shared it on the socials, but it's going to be fucking awesome. And Sam, it'll be up your street. But anyway, I've kind of taken us off track. But with Back on Black, so what is the deal there, that you guys it's fully operating as your record label, or is it really more just a case of handling press, PR, and distribution?
Record label.
Label, okay.
Yeah, so they've got, like, this is a little different for us to the normal thing. They've got rights to us and all our material, sort of like around the world. But yeah, we were sort of like happy with just how they sort of like came along, gave a helping hand with Die For Us. So we're kind of interested to see how it goes. Plus, it's it's not like I don't think we're locked in for a whole bunch of albums. So if no one's happy after it, then nothing's really lost.
You're gonna be able to sell at least as long as you're in a position where when you turn 60 you can sell your masters for 500 million. You're mentioning Fleetwood Mac. I think I'm sure I read somewhere that the Fleetwood Mac members sold at least part of their masters for something fucking obscene. Like I think everyone in the band got about 250 million apiece.
Fucking hell. Gives a tenner.
On the topic of Connor re-released the first Antichrist Imperium album, which, I mean, all three Antichrist Imperium albums to me are masterpieces, but I wanted to just kind of get your reflections on that record, because, I mean, that came from, it was born from the 2010 demo you guys put out, correct? And then album came out five years later. But have you any specific memories of writing that material?
My thing with that is there was a few songs, there was a few moments in that album that were in fact there was about 3 or 4 sort of complete songs that we were jamming with Akercocke. So
what, out of interest, and I'm asking because I know the songs really well, and I guess it's always been an open secret that those were songs that you had written for Akercocke. But what were the songs, out of interest?
I'll tell you one of them for sure, because it was one that the whole band, like, it's a song that we had start to finish that we could completely play. There was a couple of songs where it was just me and Dave that had been working on it. Jason hadn't learnt them yet. Not for any ill reason. Just it was just me and Dave had been writing a song, but the main one that we were playing as a band. In fact, there were 2, and I'm going to say it was The Stiffening of Death and Epitaph. So those 2, they were start to finish act songs that that we were playing as a complete sort of unit. And they sounded great, but Axe just did what it did and sort of ground to a bit of a halt at that sort of time frame. But when the first incarnation of the Antichrist sort of stopped, maybe it was like a year or so later that I was listening to demos, like live demos that we'd done. And I was like, oh, fucking, these songs are good. These sound great. And that's when we sort of, me and Dave made a bit of a thing about, all right, well, let's record them and do an album. And then the rest is, sort of history. We got Sam Loynes in, and there was that fateful holiday that Sam was in, where he came to the studio for his typical one day in the studio and fucking over the whole thing, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
So it's and that album also, when it came out, it was a bit of a tumultuous time for me, because I had just moved. We finished it, and I'd moved back to Australia. Me and my missus, we both came back here to, because we were sick of fucking London. So we come back and live in, paradise, lived in Australia for a while. And it was also about the time that my dad was fucking in the midst of passing away. So that album came out, it was in the midst of being released and finished and finalized and coming out as I was moving back to Australia. And, it was all quite a tumultuous sort of time. So saying all that, it was and I think, and Connor just, I didn't even know that he was reissuing it until I think I saw it on the fucking internet. And I was like, wow, And I spoke to him. We would speak every so often about something or other. And he sent like the package through with the picture disc. I was like, and the art prints and the reissue of the CD and the digipack with a different cover on that. And it's 10 years on, it's like, wow, it's you just one of those things where you kind of just stop and think for a minute. It's like, oh wow, fucking I remember when we did this, and I remember being in the studio doing the vocals, and so it's cool. It's pretty amazing to have, like, at the time, it was almost like we couldn't believe that we'd actually done the album and that it was going to be released. And then, let alone 10 years down the track, for it to be re-released, on a picture disc. And it's like fucking cool, and the artwork's fabulous. So the record looks amazing. It's pretty cool, it's pretty special for when that kind of thing happens. And I was gearing up, like, every year, for however long now, I know that I've got releases coming out. So be it, like between Werewolves and Faustian and my other bands and everything, it's like I usually know that, oh, cool, this album's being released this year, or that album's being released. And this year was a bit of a, thinking back to like last year, I knew that this year was going to be a little bit sort of quiet, because last year I did 3 albums last year, which is pretty amazing. And I thought, well, this year's going to be a bit quiet compared to that. And then, we found out about the Werewolves box set. It's like, oh, fucking, that's cool, like a box set with like 180 minutes of the same drum beat. And then to find out that the reissue of the first Antichrist was coming out, I was like, oh wow, that's also pretty special, So between those 2 releases and then this upcoming Werewolves one, it's things are cool. And then there's the Faustian, which may not get it won't be released this year, I don't think, but
it'll manifest.
Yeah. So yeah, it's pretty special for that Antichrist record to come out again, I guess.
Sam, did this re-release, did it make you go back and listen to that first album?
A little bit, yeah. I kind of, all I could think of when I listened to it was how much it's changed, or just like evolved, I guess, since that first album. Like the first album works, it goes. It's really funny. Like I can remember, when Matt was playing me demos of it, and talking about, I'm starting up this other band, so I can at least put these out. And his songs. What do you think about them? There was never any sort of like discussion at that point. Do you want to join or do anything with it? So I remember listening to it and just going, yeah, look, they all end strong, but it takes about 13 or 14 minutes to get there. Like, how about just trimming the songs a bit, just compacting it? I think they got compacted all the way from that down to 7 or 8 minutes. So but I remember sort of like watching them do the thing for a while. So like as a 3-piece, I think it was Nikki on bass and vocals, and Dave and Matt. And I was just thinking to myself, fuck yeah, Nikki looks like he looks like some Middle Eastern Glenn Benton. He's just he looks like a death metal frontman should look like. He looks kind of like a bit fucking dangerous. But when I was holidaying over there and heard that he wasn't doing the vocals for it, like I think they'd tried a few other names who had all kind of gone nut, and they were like Londoners. And when they asked me, I was just like, fuck yeah. We always used to do the Berserker sort of pre-tour rehearsals at the studio, like Dave's studio that Akercocke used, and that we were going to do like the vocals for. So I just wanted an excuse just to go back there and check it out and have that little trip down memory lane. It's really kind of funny because it has a sort of like booth and then the room where I'm doing vocals in. And it was, I remember some takes like it was really funny. We just had like 4 or 5 sheets of Dave's freeform filth, like, and then the guys would fast forward to a spot in a song, and they'd be like, "Okay, we need something over this," and I'd be like, "Okay," just flick through the pages, like, anointing the face, the eyes, and the face. Okay, yeah, cool. Stick that in here, and it was the best. Like, normally I do vocals, and I've just normally got an engineer who's just kind of like focused on the computer screen going, "Yep, okay, did you want to do another? No, okay, cool." With these guys, I do a line or whatever, and I look over, and it was like soundproof their part, and I just see 3 guys going. So yeah, it's funny. Antichrist is one of those things that just suddenly piled up a whole ton of music, like, before we knew what was going on. 3 albums in, but each one of them is like a hefty album. Now, each one of them is about, I hate to say it, about 2 Werewolves worth of, like, just track lengths.
I thought you were going to say 2 Werewolves worth of ideas, because that is something. Antichrist Imperium does cram in on all 3 records, a huge amount of ideas onto every single song. I think actually, in some ways, never for me, obviously. I mean, literally every single year that an Antichrist album has come out, it's been my album of the year. I think actually for some people, like that complexity is slightly overwhelming, which is why I think it has a select audience. It's like drinking the best wine. Not every asshole is going to be able to pick up the best Cabernet Sauvignon, drink it and understand what they've just had. But I think a big chunk of that is because of the complexity. Like the first and last straightforward Antichrist Imperium song was "Kill for Satan." Mm-hmm. I think that's the only one that you could listen to and go, okay, well, maybe the average listener will get into this, but everything else is, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff happening in the best possible way.
Yeah, it's anything that comes from Ak, really, like, because Ak was, for me, to go from Berserker, which is just futuristic electronic caveman fucking shit, all through to joining Ak, where they've got this, that, and the other all happening all the time. It's pretty full on. So it's just a matter of trying to blend those. Well, for me, the whole point of it was to try and blend all those things together and to have them sort of fairly, like, smoothly transition. It's funny, like, we got the reissue. I listened to the record, and I hadn't listened to the first album for a long time. And it's funny because I hear it and go, oh, it's got some great moments in it, and it's cool. But some of those transitions can be clunky, and there's a bit, even where there's not necessarily clunky transitions, like, there's long songs, and it's a lot to take in. So it's just, I totally understand people not being into it for that reason.
But I mean, again, I think Akercocke, especially in the early days, was like that too. They had infamy, but it's always been a quite select audience. Just again, this is personal curiosity as much as it is anything else, because I think that you slot in really naturally into the Akercocke kind of writing setup. So you joined on Words Ago Unspoken, but by that point, most of that album was already written, correct? So you didn't really contribute a huge amount to that. On Antichrist, which songs did you write?
Well, if we go back one, like, I wrote the majority of. There's a song on Words called "The Penance," and I wrote most of that. With that band, it was never like a matter of a person writes something. It was always much more collaborative. So like I had written, well, at least started off The Penance, and then collectively we all sort of finished it and worked on arrangements and that. First summon for Antichrist, actually that I've just contradicted everything I've said, because that was a little bit segregated. There was a bit more of sort of maybe Jason's songs and my songs, but even then it was still all worked on together in the studio, and bits and pieces were layered by different people. I wrote the first song, Summon the Antichrist. Man Without Faith or Trust, I think.
So this was part of me asking you this is I wanted to check, like, could I spot a Matt Wilcock riff?
I reckon
and my thoughts were Summon the Antichrist, Man Without Faith or Trust, and Footsteps Resound in an Empty Chapel. Those are the three that I had. Those are the ones that you'd written.
Yeah, that's it. Then and there might have been bits of other things. And also saying that, I reckon Jason probably contributed parts to those three songs anyway. It was definitely collaborative. But as far as, if you wanted to sort of try and be black and white about it, then they're the ones I wrote, and the other ones are written by, well, at least riff-wise, written by Jason. But it was a team effort for sure. We all sort of worked together on things.
It's an album that, and not to dwell too long on Akercocke, but that's definitely an album that gets. I feel like time has treated it fondly. There's more people that come out of the woodwork now that go, "Hey, actually, that album is way better than I gave it credit for." I mean, I've always liked it. I think I don't like The Dark Inside. That song I would have stricken from the record, but Man Without Faith or Trust, masterpiece. Footsteps Around an Empty Chapel, masterpiece. My Apturus Angel, fucking fantastic. I mean, there are real high points on that record. And as I said, I feel like people have come around to it a lot more, I'd say in the last 5 years that I've seen, than they were when the album first came out.
I'll tell you something. With Man Without Faith or Trust, so this is a fucking long time ago, so I can't really remember. But what I do remember is that intro riff. I'd come up with something, and that riff was in it. And I remember at the studio, Jason was like, "Fucking that riff, that's the one. Start with that." I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." So we started with that, and it's like, "Oh, of course." So, as an example there, it was like very much a team effort. Like, I forget, I've got no idea what it was, but I know that wasn't where it started. I had something else happening. And then as a band, it was like, right, that's the bit, fucking start the song with that. And,
Who came up with that sequence in that song, the waiting patiently, the clean singing, and then it's fast, and then it goes even faster when he says, like, under a Judas goat skin, and they're like waiting patiently. Who came up with that?
I'm going to say, I can't remember. Obviously, lyrically, it would have all been Dave or Jason. I reckon I wrote most of the riffs. Maybe Jason wrote that clean riff. I can't remember. It's too long ago. It would make sense that I wrote the brutal bits and Jason wrote the nice bits.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah,
it's a long time
that
ago.
to me, that is peak Akercocke. Like, whenever I think of Akercocke, there's two things I think about. Like, with most bands, there'll always be like a moment you think of straight away when you think of a particular band. That sequence, and then the end of Becoming the Adversary. Those are always like the definitive Akercocke moments for me. With Antichrist Imperium, it's the and I don't have the lyrics to hand, so I may be getting this wrong, but it was one of the first Goosebump Sam Bean moments I ever had. The demon god Belial like shout like when Kill Satan slows down like a half step. That is just absolute genius. And then obviously, there's so many other great moments on all the other Antichrist Imperium records. I must ask, as we go back out of that into Werewolves, I'm assuming no further conversation about Antichrist Imperium. Is it going to be 3 albums and later rest, or is there a sliver of a chance that something might be brewing?
At the moment, there's 3, and that's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've said other stupid things and then proved myself wrong like 10 minutes later. So who knows? But yeah, it's a lot of mental bandwidth to fucking make that band have a good album. You know, not saying they're good. I'm simply saying for me to try and make something that I'm happy with, it's a fucking lot of work. So at the moment, no.
Yeah. I think for what that last album, it was like 2 or 3 years from when basically studio time kind of started to we sort of handed off the album and was like, it's done. And we're just kind of spoiled these days, man. Like we do a Werewolves album and it sort of like takes us 2 or 3 months, like from when we get the drums to the demos off Dave, and then Matt's like, all right, I'm into the studio, and then it's like, hey, I better hurry up. And that's how long it takes. So it's like after that much instant gratification, it's kind of like it's hard to go back to the thought of doing this transnational multi-year.
No, but to say you have to. It's so much time investment for what you're going to get back from it.
Yeah. Like you get a. You know, if number 3 and number 2 for me, like, or anything to go by, you get a fucking killer album that's gonna, like, you know, I'm waiting for the decade releases of those, like, very avidly. But yeah, no, it is a lot of work, and yeah, Antichrist Imperium. I'm proud of what we've done with that, but it's also pretty niche as well. You know, people listen to it, love it, but it's not like there's a seething mass of people wanting to like raise us up on plinths and carry us through the streets over that shit. Not by a long shot.
How? And let's start with you on this, Sam. I think as a vocalist, especially because you're the voice of the band in many ways, and we all grew up with the concept of the front man, and the front man is the face of the band in many ways. How self-critical are you of the work that you do? Like when you're in the studio, when you've recorded something, like how often do you go back and go, this is fucking atrocious? Like I'm keen to get a sense of how hard you are on yourself.
Almost every time.
Trickiest to record it.
I saw Matt laughing there, so I knew something was coming.
Yeah, like he's right. The trick is to record it and then never listen to it again. And with something like Werewolves, that's easy. Yeah, with Werewolves, that's easy because, like, by the time the album comes out, you're so busy trying to get ready for the next one that you don't have time to like listen to the old one. But no, most of the time I go back and I sort of like listen to stuff, and I'll get usually 90% of the way there, and there's 10% of stuff where I'm like, I could have done better, or I could have rephrased that. Like, and if anyone's sort of like going, well, what? I think on. Examples would be whatever our third album was fucking called, From the Cave to the Grave. The last song on that, like Shut Your Mouth, that has kind of like the... What's that?
Watch Your Mouth.
Watch Your Mouth, yeah.
Close enough. We should have called it Shut Your Mouth. That's much better. Like that's got some of my favorite sort of like constructed vocal bits on it, but I left it to the last song of the day to do, so the voice wasn't at its strongest. It should have been done first. There's a couple of sections where I was like, really wanted to give it there, and I can tell, like, probably no one else can. That's kind of the musician's life in it, but like I can sort of like tell that it could have been a lot better, stuff like that. There's one on. There's even one on like The Ugliest of All, like the song where I was going bashu, bashu, bashu. And I just suddenly realized that I shouldn't have worried about lyrics for the rest of the song. I should have just like kept chanting bashu, 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 bashu. I think that was what you were expecting as well, like Matt. So yeah, there's little things like that. But yeah, unfortunately I'm old enough now that I don't have that full young buck hormonal beat yourself up trip that like a lot of musicians do, where they're just like, no, it's shit. And I'm like, no, it's great, but like I would have, I'd love to just redo that last 10%.
There's a lot to be said for sort of sometimes going, that'll do. There's a bit of vibe and sort of emotion that can be captured in that, maybe that first take. And it's like, we've just we've just done the next Faustian album, and and that's all going to be sort of mixed in the coming month, I guess. You know, Joe's away for a while, but anyway, with that, like I made, you know, all I was thinking, like I knew the material was strong. Like we wrote it like fucking in 2022, like straight after the first one, I wrote the next one, but just got around to doing it. And when we finally did it, it's like fucking the demos. Like Dave did the drums, and we had the demos back, and it's like fucking hell, this is fucking incredible. This is like all three of us were like literally fucking Jesus Christ, this is awesome. It's gonna be so fucking good.
I was like, do you even want me to put vocals over it? It'll just fucking ruin it. Like, do we even mix it?
Yeah, like we heard the mix, like just the demo mix with the guy guitars. I hadn't done any reamping or anything, and it's like fucking hell, this is pretty good as is. You know, I don't want to ruin it. It's got the Burzum and the Dark Throne plug-in at the moment. Like it sounds perfect. Don't touch it. Anyway, I'm recording those guitars. I made a point of like, usually I like, obviously I try and do everything properly. And, you know, and I, again, try to do everything properly with this as well. But most of that album, most of it is one take. Like I didn't do whole songs at once. I would just do like left and right at the verse and left and right at the chorus and left and right, whatever, you know. So, but I did make a point of thinking to myself, like, fucking black metal, it doesn't have to be clinically fucking precise. Like, how much time did they spend doing In the Night Side Eclipse? You know, I guarantee they didn't sit in front of a fucking computer doing it over and over and over. They just fucking played it. And it's like, right, that's what I'm going to do, you know. And there's probably some mistakes on it. I did a little bit of tidying up of the whole thing, but not really, you know. It's like, get it done, just do it quickly. And we're listening back to these sort of mixes now. And now that I've got the proper guitar sounds, it's like, fucking hell, it sounds great. And his vocals are fucking, it's incredible. It's like a fucking screaming banshee 1 minute, fucking Attila on crack another minute. It's just fucking, it's very good. So that's quite exciting.
It also sounds like, the way you're describing it to me, it sounds like you've gone out of your way to try and distinguish this as a project from Werewolves, because it is quite apparent when you listen to Werewolves, more of your black metal influences have crept into that band as albums have progressed, and I love that. But I mean, even, you know, every so often I'll check out a video review or something of an album by, you know, like an American that doesn't necessarily know you guys. They mention it, you know, they mention the black metal influence as well. So you know, I guess with Faustian, it is kind of, for it to exist as an entity by itself, you do need to do something that is much more distinct from Werewolves than necessarily just, I guess, dabbling, putting your toe into black metal. You need to go the whole hog.
That's it. Yeah. That it's gonna be great. Vocals are fucking, he sings in it, you know, which is quite amazing. So it's almost in tune as well. It's incredible.
we were talking for a while, like you know, about, you know, sounds and samples and like using MIDI and whatnot. And I was in the studio and I was like, well, why bother doing that when I can just fucking sing it and layer it and have instant choir and save us all a little bit of time and smashing our head on a computer, like getting stuff done. But yeah, this vocal wise, this is like it's the performance I'm most proud of so far out of, I think, anything I've done. But yeah, I went for it because of course I sort of like got the songs, and poor Matt and Dave, I've been up their ass for like the last few years going, when are we doing the next Faustian? When are we doing the next Faustian? It's fucking awesome. When are we doing it? It's so good. And so like when the drums came back, like I had one of those rare moments of like going, I actually, you know, I've been hassling the guys so hard about this. I need to really step up and do something pretty good for it. So yeah, there was that. And Matt and Dave are the black metal guys out of the band. Like I'm a poser. I'm not afraid to admit it. So quite often whenever I do anything that's blackened, or like particularly with Faustian, I'm not running like Werewolves. I'm running off a good 30 years, like at least, of listening to death metal, and I know instinctively what goes where and what's good and what to be done, what's going to go over with the crowd, kind of thing. Faustian, it's like I'm very always much aware that it's someone else's game I'm dabbling in, and not to shame myself doing it. So yeah, there's a bit of listening to stuff like Funeral Mist, like Anal Nathrak or Emperor Welkins, before doing Faustian, sort of like hearing what they're doing and going, okay, it's got to be that, but at least that. So that was kind of the go this time. Anal Nathrak certainly made it easier for me by not like stopping putting out albums for a while. So I'm like, good. Hopefully everyone forgot that they existed and like won't catch sort of like some of the, I guess, the tricks of voices. Like I'm running off there.
But there was definitely like I could pick up in the first Faustian record, I could pick up an Al Nathrak influence, and again in a good way, especially when they decided on their last album that they were no longer going to do. They decided we were retiring from making good music, but you could pick that up for sure. So Ugliest of All, September the 19th. It's your best album as Werewolves by far. It now sounds as though there is another extraordinary record coming in Faustian to look forward to. To wrap this up, here's a question, and I think it's for both of you. But Matt, I think it's especially relevant to you because of how much different kind of music you've done. You've got Shotgun Mistress, you've been in Akercocke, Berserker, the list goes on. Is there anything that you would like to do musically that you haven't done yet that is on the horizon for you at some point? No matter how wild it is. Like I want to make, I want to be the fucking backing guitarist for Madonna. But musically, is there something
he wants to make money
that you haven't done yet?
Yeah, that'd be the day, won't it? Fuck. I'll tell you what I want to do, and there's a few things I like. I'm a fan of sort of sludgy, sort of stonery stuff. When I say that, like I'm not too well versed in that sort of music, but anything from I know it's not exactly sludgy and stonery, but down, like Phil Anselmo's Down, down to sort of more obscure, like sort of rocky, sludgy bands. I'd like to do that, but I probably won't because I like listening to it, but I don't know if I want to do any fucking work and actually make it happen. But I reckon that I'll probably start playing when I get too old, when I grow up and stop playing fucking heavy metal, stop wasting my own fucking life playing heavy metal. I reckon I'll start playing blues guitar, whether that's in the context of a band or whether I learn to sing and fucking become a blues man or whatever. But I spend a lot of time, I ain't good, but I spend a lot of time playing blues, just at least trying to play blues. So maybe that's on the cards one day. But there's a few things that need to be done first. So obviously there's a few more Werewolves albums that need to happen, and I don't know what else. Whether there's more Faustian. There's a newer Bremelin record in the works. So I'm in the midst of a Shotgun Mistress album, and Shotgun sort of tickles that blues sort of playing that I'm into. Yeah, so something like that maybe. It's funny. I watched going back to we're talking about the Aussie sort of it's the Sabbath show, the Birmingham one, and watching that. When I watch Guns N' Roses play, and obviously apart from fucking Mr. Hankey on the vocals, that fucking Slash was just fucking incredible. His playing was so good. It was like really, really enjoyable to watch. And then Axl started singing. But Yeah, so I mean, I'm really into that style of playing, and I guess maybe with age that might come out a bit. But then again, I mean, I did spend the whole day at work today listening to Slayer, Angel Corpse, Morbid Angel, Necrophagist. So who knows?
It's funny that like there are just some guitarists were just born to write a certain style of music. Like if you listen to Kirk Winstein, he was born to write Crowbar. Even when he plays in Down, writes riffs for Down, they still sound like Crowbar riffs. They sound like his riffs. Matt Pike was born to do High on Fire. When when they did the Sleep reunion, that there was still, you could hear anytime that his riffs came in, you could hear it was him. And it's the same with you. Like you were born to write this style of music. Like it's like I think there's something where creatively when you can make that sort of soul connection. And what you're doing on your instrument is no longer thought; it's a matter of expression. That's what the end result is what you hear on a Werewolves album, a High on Fire album, a Crowbar album, and all these records where it really sounds like the instrument is an extension of the musician.
Cool.
Of the musician's subconscious. I don't not to sound too wanky or esoteric here, but you understand what I mean. Sam knows what I mean. Look at him; he's grinning. So Sam, what would you like music wise? What would you want to take on? Because you've had the Senseless, you've done a lot of different stuff. Is there anything that you would want to take on that you haven't done yet?
Commodore 64 soundtracks.
AI, forget about it. All music AI.
No, look, I've had a fourth Senseless album written for fucking years now, and I kind of finished writing that round about the time that all the Werewolves and extra stuff just kind of like swarmed me. So I hope to finish that and like put it out to its 10 appreciative listeners at some point.
You're not going to get a blank from me though. You know that.
Thank you. But I was going to say it's kind of funny because I remember I quit like music or being in bands around 2014 or 15. Like I was very much sort of like, look, I've done everything I wanted to do. I've done like big overseas tours. I've done my world tours. I've played at big fests. I'd done Berserker and had that whole experience, which is rare for I've found out since then is kind of pretty rare for anyone who's been in a band, and that was in an era where we probably can't a lot of those things that happen for us then won't happen for anyone again. Then I had the Mithras experience, which was like playing music I was actually into with with the bands like of just outrageously good musicians. I had the self-indulgent, scratch my own creative, like wanky itch thing with Senseless. And then, it just, I'd flown overseas to like help a guy with his album. I helped out with Antichrist Imperium. So yeah, kind of like around 2014, I was like, really, there's nothing really left for me to do that, I want to do. Like I've kind of done it all. So I'm sort of like more surprised than anyone else. I've been dragged back into all this death metalry with Werewolves and now black metalry, which 10 years ago, if someone was like, yeah, you'd be making some black metal albums with Matt and Dave, I would have been like, get fucked. No, I won't. Don't talk shit. Now I'm sort of like doing that, and that's the thing I'm enjoying the most. Like, I already feel like I've done way more than I set out to do. So, I don't really have anything where I'm like, if a truck hit me and I had that 10 minutes of time left in hospital, like there wouldn't be any sort of regrets going, I didn't get to do this, that, and the other. I'd be like, did it all. If there's anything less, like while Matt's stitching me up, like if there's anything left, it's going to surprise me as much as anyone else.
I think something which I think I've found throughout life, and you'll probably sort of agree, is you do something like, so we did fucking a whole lot of shit with the Berserker like a long time ago, and it's it's weird to think of like you know, you'd never think what is going to keep happening. So there's no reason why that shouldn't, that sort of like, you know, if you're, I'm going to use the term a lifer, you know, because I mean, fucking, you know, I think once you've released, I don't know, fucking 20 something albums, it's, you know, you don't really think this way about yourself, but like once you've done something so much, it's like, well, obviously that's what you do, that's your thing. So, you know, even if Werewolves get to 10 albums and like, you know, even if like we just sort of collectively say, look, fucking that's enough. We can't, what's the point of doing it anymore? It's just going to sound like the last album, but hopefully a bit better. Whatever, 100 songs for people to listen to is enough. But like we might say that, but then 6 months later, you know, who knows what opportunity will arise or what will happen, you know, what will present itself. You know, that's kind of what's happened with the rock band. Like I sort of started a rock band just so I could play quote unquote bluesier sort of guitar. And that sort of veered off in a slightly different direction than I thought it would. And, you know, like I've done things with that band, and like we played with fucking Winger earlier in the year, which is just ridiculous for me. You know, it's like, how the fuck did I wind up doing this? And talking to you know, Red Beach, who's like, I remember seeing him in the fucking guitar catalog when I was a child. It's like, fucking hell. And he was quite complimentary of my guitar playing, which is, you know, hilarious. Even if he was lying. But you know, that's the thing. It's like, I guess you don't know what's around the corner. And if you do music, you know, fucking anything in life could be around the corner. But if music's your thing, which it obviously is for me, and there's no denying that it is for you, Sam, because otherwise you wouldn't have kept doing it somehow for all this time. And it's like, you know, anything could be around the corner. If any opportunity could arise. So it'd be interesting to see what happens in the coming years, you know, like what other things happen, you know, like Morgan will call me and say, look, I can't play guitar for this upcoming Marduk tour, so if you could just step in, you know,
well, what do you look like in corpse paint?
Where's the dotted line? I fucking sign it.
It's actually funny, you know, in our group chat, whenever like a famous guitarist gets sick, like when Phil Fasciano went into hospital, like this week, we were all instantly onto Matt, like going, "Hey, gigs just opened up."
Yeah. If I'd have jumped on the case a bit earlier about the Marduk needed a bass player, so maybe I could move back to England. Maybe I could fucking.
Well, don't know if I would do that to myself willingly, mate. Know what
Sweden.
I know.
Move to Sweden.
Well, gentlemen, I think. Sorry, you were saying?
There's just one. There's just one last story. Like, kind of ties into this a bit. I saw Damaged play their final farewell show, and I think that might be their 12th or 13th like final farewell show. But that was earlier this year in Adelaide, and Chris McEwen was there. And we're both going to like sort of send you video of us like drunk and going and talking shit. But like, yeah, I sort of like. I saw the Goodbye show and it was great. It's always great to watch those guys play. But it just nagged me. It's like, why do you even announce that? Like, why do you tell people it's the Goodbye show? Why don't you just play a show and be done with it? Or play a show and then not play a show and be in that Schrodinger's band kind of like scenario until maybe something else turns up. But it never struck me like, why you have to tell people like, you know, in this big flowery announcement that that's it, and you know, no more shows from us. It's, as Matt says, you never know what's around the corner or how you're going to feel 6 months or a year from now. So yeah, we'll probably like, you know, we'll get to our 10 years and do our big fucking PR speech about like how that's it for us, and probably not though.
But it's yeah, as you say, you don't know what's around the corner. I understand with bands like Slayer when they did their farewell tour, at which point I did say, great show, but they'll be back in 5 years' time. you understand, like, I think it's a closure for them as much as it is for fans. It also helps with the ticket sales a little bit. But as you say, you never know what's coming around the corner. I mean, I was sitting here thinking, as you guys were talking about this, I was sitting thinking about how I started talking to Matt. First time I ever saw Matt was on stage, and then next time I saw him, I was at a Thai boxing show at the Scala in London, and I saw this dude standing there, and I was like, fucking hell, that looks a lot like Matt from Akercocke. And I thought to go and say hello, never did. Then,
I remember that show, that fight.
Yeah. So didn't say hello, and then I was on YouTube and I discovered the Antichrist Imperium demos, and I was like, this is fucking brilliant. Like, well, what's happening here? I think I added you randomly on Facebook, just thinking, maybe you'll accept, added him, messaged you. If I scroll back over our messages, I might even be able to find it, but we started talking because of that. And then in 2025, I'm sitting here, and you two guys I consider to be dear friends. I've never in a million years have thought in 2012, when I was at that Thai boxing show, not having the, not wanting to, go bug somebody or feel like some fan, sidling up to someone at a show, would never have thought that 13 years later, you're sitting here and you're talking to people like, like your friends. I've had those moments on this podcast so many times as well. There's one I'll tell you about offline that, if somebody had told me in 2006 that next week, if it happens, is going to happen, I would have gone, you're out of your fucking mind. But it's it's crazy. Like I said, as you say, you never know. You never know what's coming. I do know what's coming though, and that is we're going to wrap things up. So, guys, as always, an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. A reminder again, everybody, check out The Ugliest of All on September 19th. It is fucking fantastic, and we'll do this again very soon.
Cool.
Thank you.
Good talk.
Cheers, man. Always a pleasure.
This rip out your eyes and piss on your brain.
Rats vs. Snakes, the band unmistakably Werewolves that is taken from their upcoming album, The Ugliest of All. Due for release on September the 19th. It's coming out on Back on Black Records. Massive thanks to Matt and Sam for their time. Always great catching up with those guys. Not the last time that you will hear them on Into the Necrosphere. And I don't know whether this made the recording or not, but the plans are afoot for myself and the wife to pack up and head to Australia for a couple of weeks. Probably not 2026, but it will most likely be 2027. And I am very much hoping to meet as many Australian members of the Legion as I can during that visit, as well as hang out with a lot of my very good friends that I've made over the course of this podcast. So I'll keep you guys updated, but that's for sure on the roadmap. What should be on your roadmap is picking up that new Werewolves record. You also need to pick up the Antichrist Imperium debut reissue, now out on Apocalyptic Witchcraft Records. Absolutely fucking fantastic. If you're sleeping on that band, I honestly don't know what to say to you. In the year that they put out, every one of those 3 records of theirs, it was my number one of that year. They are one of the elite bands, and especially if you like Akercocke, there is no excuse for you not to be fucking knee deep in the satanic goodness of the Antichrist Imperium. Right now, my friends, we're all dealing with the loss of Ozzy in different ways, but some of us have taken the time to set up cameras and record ourselves sobbing just so we can post it on social media. If you're one of those people, you are of sub 75 IQ, you're a fucking absolute douche, and you need to hit the bricks, because this is my weekly news rant.
A roundabout for judgment. And hang them where the world can see.
As always, friends, we kick off on metalstorm.net, and you will notice a couple of aesthetic revisions to the look of the show if you are watching this on YouTube. Hopefully you guys like it. Let me know what you think in the comments. But one thing that I sometimes get is when people send feedback on, you should do this, or, I don't like the background you've used here, there, whatever the case may be. I get the impression sometimes that folks think this is a very professionally produced podcast, and that I've got a team of people working for me behind the scenes. That is most definitely not the case. I do this man alone. I do it when I have time in between a very busy day job. And a lot of this shit, I'm just learning on the fly. So, I concede I've made a couple of maybe a couple of decisions around how the podcast looks at certain times that, were very questionable, if we're perfectly honest. But, hopefully we're evolving to a point where it's as near enough to looking, tip top as we can possibly get it. Now, first up on Metal Storm, of course, news about Ozzy Osbourne. I've kind of said what I wanted to say about that when I was having my conversation with the Werewolves guys, but we'll maybe save additional comments for later on in the news rant. We get to music first and foremost, and a band whose name is a bit of a mouthful, and I'll apologize in advance if I can't pronounce this correctly. Esoctrilihum have announced a new LP due in September. No idea who these guys are, of course, otherwise I would have been able to pronounce the name properly. The record that they're going to be releasing in September is called Ghost Stigmata, Spiritual Rites of the Psychopomp Absculum. Anyway, that's been set, as it says here, as the official title of their newly announced full-length album. It is out on I Void Hanger Records, and let's give it a quick listen. Right, I'm going to pause there. I really like that. And I must be honest, I'm not sure how this band has flown under my radar. I say band, it's a one-man project out of France. This is their 12th full-length album. And even though when the song started off, I kind of sat here thinking it feels like they've accidentally overlapped two different songs on the same track. But then when things kind of snap into focus around the 50-second mark and you start getting those keyboards, you start getting more of the atmosphere, it feels kind of like more of the structure is returning to the song. Things get really, really interesting. And it definitely has a distinct French flair. You can hear probably a bit of Deathspell Omega in there, certainly a bit of Blood aus Nord, but then there's a bunch of other elements that come into it as well. You know, the atmosphere maybe has at least something reminiscent of Norwegian second wave. Yeah, I really like it. Really, really like it. Very surprised as well. The song you just heard, by the way, there's not enough space for it on the on the Bandcamp player where I listen to it on. It's called, at least the part I can read, Hark the Bewitched Trumpet of the Red Harbinger, and then it kind of trails off from there. Looks like they're trying to outdo Nile when it comes to really, really long song titles. But either way, I think that earns a well-deserved thumbs up. Not quite a top notch. I think I would need to hear the whole thing. The song itself is, 9 minutes, 47 seconds. So I'm pretty confident we'd be going through a bit of a journey listening to it. But yeah, like it. Like it very much, and a great way to get us started on the news rant this week. Okay, Imperialist are streaming a brand new track. We've listened to a couple of songs off this album now. It says, Imperialist have unleashed Beneath the Sands of Titan, another new track in preview of their oncoming studio record Prime that comes out on 22nd of August. Well, I mean, Imperialist, we've already confirmed, is definitely one of the better Transcending Obscurity signings. I really, really enjoyed their 2021 album, Zenith. That was actually a record that was introduced to me by Kelly T, Matt Prizzo of Conspiracy X, Spells of Torment, and Six Better Half. And, somebody that you guys should all know, if not for her appearances on the show, then certainly on social media. She does really cool stuff from a promoter perspective in Australia as well. But, Zenith really impressed me. Prime so far has been it's definitely caught my attention. I wouldn't say I've been as excited about it as I was about Zenith, but I think I also need to hear the whole album. This song to me sounds like it's got hints of early Heathen, like, Breaking the Silence, Victims of Deception era Heathen thrash riffing that then mixes with that black metal that they're known for, and I think they do it really well. It doesn't sound forced. It sounds very natural. It sounds like it's the outcome of the four guys in the band's different influences, and they blend those together in a way that is as I said, I think works really, really well. So good stuff. Another thumbs up from me, and I do bust balls a little bit when it comes to Transcending Obscurity, in part for good reason, but they do have some very, very good bands on that label. The ball busting comes from the fact that I just think that maybe they sign a few too many bands, and a lot of those bands sometimes get lost in the shuffle a little bit. I think, especially if we go back to the conversation that I had with Sam and Matt, there is work that needs to be done on a record. And I think that smaller labels in particular would be better served by having less bands on the roster and investing their time in a band that they believe in, but then really making sure that that band is pushed and that they're getting that band under the noses, under the attention of the right people. Hope that makes sense, what I said there. A couple of quick updates, by the way. I shared this on Instagram about 24 hours ago at the point that I'm recording this. When you're listening to this, if indeed you listen on release day, which frankly you should, and I know a very significant chunk of you guys actually do, if you're listening to this on release day, I will be 40,000 feet up in the air on my way to Bergen, Norway for Beyond the Gates. So after all the fucking palaver and bullshit and back and forth, thanks to the intervention of a couple of folks who probably I won't mention, not because anything untoward went on, but maybe they wouldn't want me to kind of call them out by name, but some intervention from them. I finally got this visa issue sorted out. Went to the Norwegian embassy this past Wednesday to collect my visa. They were super nice. Very different to dealing with those fucking clowns at VFS. So yeah, I'm off to Beyond the Gates. Not going to tell you guys just yet what I've got lined up, but it's going to be a busy couple of days, and some very, very cool things happening. So the lineup for the next couple of weeks of Into the Necrosphere is going to be fucking wild. That's all I'm going to say. Lots of face-to-face. Some more video content for the YouTube channel, like YouTube exclusive content, the same as I did with Fortress Festival. One thing I'm definitely going to do is a venue walkthrough. Might be doing that with a guest you guys know very, very well. Look out for that. And then the other announcement that I can share, because it's done, it's in the bank. Vincent Crowley of Acheron and I recorded about an hour and 17-minute long conversation. We could honestly have spoken for 4 hours and 17 minutes, and I don't think we would have run out of things to say. It's one of those episodes where as I was recording it, in the back of my mind, I already knew this is going to become a Legion favorite. He is an incredibly nice guy. Super interesting, loads to say. We covered everything from music through to his time with and his exit from the Church of Satan. You are not going to want to miss this. Now, I'm not 100% sure, folks, that I'm going to get the time, or whether I will be whether I'll have the capacity to do a full episode for next week. So you may very well next week get something that is, you'll definitely get some video content, no doubt about that. But it will probably be the way that I did Fortress, where I kind of did a Fortress Festival, like 10-15 minute recap. I'll do a Beyond the Gates recap, Beyond the Gates walkthrough, maybe a few other things, but there probably won't be a full episode next week. And then episode 284, that'll be the week after. And then it's then we run all the way through to December. And by my calculation, we're hitting episode 300 before the end of this year. I've got a list of 3 wish list guests that I'm desperate to have on for that episode. One of them, I do have the benefit that I have a friend who knows the person, so I could potentially lean on that friendship to make it happen. But I'm going to make sure that episode 300 is something special. And then, brace yourself for immense sadness and sorrow, because this year I'm going to be taking a much lengthier holiday than I did last year. So we're actually flying to South Africa on December the 5th, and we're coming back on January the 10th. So it's likely that probably that second week of December will be my last episode for the year. I'll record that before I go. And then I'll probably kick things back off again around mid-January. So actually not a bigger break than I usually take around the festive period, but I'm going to be away for much longer. So on to some music. Ofermod, 6th full-length on the way. A couple of people have been hitting me up about this and saying I need to check it out. Experienced black metalers from Sweden, Ofermod, disclosed details and 2 songs in connection with their new album announcement entitled Dracosophia. It'll be released by Shadow Records, marketed and distributed by Regain Records on October 3rd, 2025. Absolutely fucking love it. I think the first and most noticeable thing, of course, is that the vocals have changed. Adeptus is back in the band after a couple of years away. He replaces Nebiros, who was the vocalist on Ofermod's previous album, Mysterium Iniquitatis. But Nebiros, very capable vocalist. Adeptus, fucking fantastic. He kind of has that mid to low drone, but he makes it sound really aggressive, really menacing, really nasty. So that instantly scores points with me. And then, I mean, the music is reasonably straightforward Scandinavian black metal, but the magic lies in the execution. You can hear there's real passion, there's real venom in the way that it's delivered. I like the production as well. It's kind of dry-ish sounding, but lots of space between the instruments. Has a harshness, but without sounding brittle. I think it's fucking excellent. That is top notch, without a doubt. You guys were absolutely correct to call that out as something that I would like. And the song, by the way, that you just heard, Vineyards of Gomorrah. So superb song, and definitely something that I'm going to be looking forward to hearing more of nearer its release on October the 3rd. All right. Crisium announced Conquerors of Armageddon North American tour. They're celebrating apparently the 25th anniversary of Conquerors of Armageddon, taking with them Abysmal Dawn, Pyrexia, and Gorgatron. That'd be a pretty decent decent show to catch, I think. I had the weirdest experience at a fucking grocery store not too long, not more than a few days ago. I was actually wearing my Conquerors of Armageddon t-shirt, and this fucking guy who's manning the till says to me, "Who are Conquerors of Armageddon?" And I go, "It's not Conquerors of Armageddon. It's a band from Brazil called Grizion." And he goes, "Who are they?" And I'm like, "A death metal band." And you know, when somebody asks you a random question like that, and there's like an underlying sense that he thinks that it's something sketchy, like it's some other Nazi thing, which is so fucking bizarre to me that it's just unreal, because there's nothing about that cover that should suggest that it's sketchy. But the way that he was asking it, I just picked up that vibe. I just picked up that sense that he thinks that it's some or other fucking far right bullshit. And I actually wanted to say to the guy, "Do you have a problem?" And when he said no, I'd have said, "Well, you're about to fucking have one. Scan me through the till and let's be done with it." But anyway, that aside, great show. If you're in North America, I would definitely try and catch that. Despised Icon, new album out in October. Canadian deathcore heavyweights Despised Icon have announced their 7th studio album, Shadow Work, set for October the 31st, released by Nuclear Blast Records. Kind of think it's almost unfair to call them deathcore, because yes, they come from that scene and there's still some of that in their music, but I wouldn't really say that they're not a traditional deathcore band, and I don't think they should be lumped in with a lot of that generic bullshit either. They generally make fucking cool music, and live they are superb. All right, what else have we got, folks? Melancholia unveil Picking the Scabs. Now, no idea what Melancholia sounds like, but instantly when I saw Australia, given the tenor of this week's episode, I figured let's give this one a listen. Australians Melancholia have dropped a music video for Picking Scabs, the newest preview tune of their upcoming long player, Random Access Misery. As deathcore goes, I don't think that's bad. It's still there. There are parts of it that I think, as a producer, I would have told them to change. One of them being that riff that kind of repeats throughout the song, and I'm gonna probably embarrass myself trying to replicate it here, but I think you know exactly which one I'm referring to when I go dun 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 dun. It just sounds so generic, and it just kind of it's like it's trying to string together parts that are by standalone are a lot more interesting. the keyboards actually work quite well in the song. The vocals and stuff, they sound better than the average deathcore vocalist, at least a little bit more discernible than the average deathcore vocalist. It's plenty heavy, but yeah, I mean, it's still a hair above mid, as far as I'm concerned. It's not going to be a band that I put on the list. It's interesting how many deathcore bands Nuclear Blast have been signing, and maybe I'm just imagining it, but they do seem to be signing up as many as they can possibly find, which has kind of been their MO since the early 2000s. They go after anything that's a trend. And, I do hope at some point this deathcore trend comes to an end, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, no, it's not dreadful. It's not blowing me away either. There are parts of it that I like. There are parts of it that I think could have been fine-tuned and could have been a little bit better. They detract from my enjoyment of the rest of the song. Mysticon, second full-length, due in September. I saw some fucking absolute wet hanky, soggy nappy of a man post on Is It Sketch the other day. As soon as the single came out, he must have listened to it, liked it, and then gone, oh my God, will it be okay? Will I get the approval from the rest of my mates on Is It Sketch on Reddit as to whether this is good or not? I don't actually think anyone answered him, but no doubt their most fervent investigators are hot on the case to make sure that Mysticon at some point didn't play on a show with Destroyer 666, or even worse, Impaled Nazarene. Polish black and death metal bringers Mysticon will return with their new studio record. I'm gonna fuck this one up. Bisen on September the 23rd, 2025, mixed and mastered by Adrian Maskowitz at Tribe 5 Studio. And the song that they have offered us, another one whose title I will absolutely ravage, Nazjes Kri. So whilst I figure out how those are actually pronounced and correct myself after the fact, let's hear what the song sounds like. All right, I know I let that one run well past what we would normally, or the time we would normally afford a track on the news rant, but it did get off to a bit of a slow start. I will be honest. I thought when things were kicking off, I thought this is these guys are playing the weak man's game. However, when the song actually kicks in, I fucking love it. Really cool atmospheric black metal that has a Polish twist to it, but also harkens back to kind of the mid 90s. I wouldn't say symphonic black metal, but where bands like Old Man's Child, Dimmu Borgir, bands like that, and I think it works very, very well. By the way, this band has quite the pedigree. They were formed in 2015 by members of Vader, Lux Occulta, Hate, and Batushka. So bizarrely unsigned. No fucking idea how that's possible, especially based on what we just heard. But I do happen to know, just for any diehard members of Is It Sketch, there's almost no question if the band features members of those acts that at some point someone in Mysticon shared a urinal once, or at least stood before a urinal once used by Rob from Graveland. So watch out, because this almost certainly threatens your safety and mine. That being said, if you're not a fucking absolute loser, an absolute fucking walking tampon of a man, this is fucking great, and it gets a top notch from me without a shadow of a doubt. Bietzin is the way that you pronounce that album title, by the way, and the song, whose name I also mispronounced. It translates from Polish to English as "On Our Blood," and that in itself, of course, sounds like the ravings of somebody who almost certainly must be from the far right. This one is a song I've been dying to share with you guys. Now, the song in question is by Tombs, of course, the band featuring Sensei Mike Hill, one of the founding members of the Horsemen of the Podcasting Apocalypse. A guy that over the last couple of years I consider a very good friend. I love what he does on his podcasts. I really love what he does musically. But I always, when it comes to listening to or promoting a song by somebody who I'm friends with, I do want to make it very clear to everybody. I loved Tombs well before I met Mike. Well before I'd said a word to him, I was a fan of the band, which is why I reached out to Katie about getting something set up with Mike way back in the day. I loved what he does. I think that Tombs, my personal opinion, and I don't want to give anything away about what that US black metal countdown might end up sounding like, but Tombs for me is one of the best US black metal bands ever. And I know they're not what you would call traditional black metal. Some people might not even class them as black metal at all. I do. And I think what Tombs does is extraordinarily interesting, and it has always been interesting. I don't think there's ever a Tombs album that you could call boring. Like, you might have favorites, you might have one that you like over the other, but there's never one that repeats itself, and there's never a Tombs record that is dull, where you just kind of go, well, I'm going through the motions. I heard the best stuff on Savage Gold, or whatever the case may be. Now, I have heard this whole album. I've said to you guys before my thoughts. I think this is the best thing Tombs have ever put out. But for those of you who haven't heard this track yet, US sludge metal operatives, sludge metal, they're fucked in the head, US black metal operatives, Tombs, are set to return with their next full-length installment, Feral Darkness, due out on the 17th of October 2025 via Redefining Darkness Records. It was recorded by Justin Spaeth, Andrew Murphy, and Mike Hill. Mixed by Justin Spaeth, mastered by Andy Roschek at Goblin Sound Studio in Cologne, Germany. To taste a first piece of the new music, check out the new song entitled Feral Darkness.
fucking magnificent. Absolutely fucking magnificent. Now, again, people are going to hear that and go, oh, that's not black metal. Listen to the whole album. They've always leaned into, kind of post-punk kind of stuff, which Mike is a very big fan of. I think this is a song that works exceptionally well. And like I said on last week's episode, and I think this was part of the recording, I can't quite remember, I personally feel like, in terms of sound and direction for this record, it feels like this is the album that Mike wanted to make when he did the Grand Annihilation, which still happens to be one of my favorite Tombs albums. But this is kind of a lot of the elements that made up the Grand Annihilation, maybe a little bit more black metal if you think of the whole album, and just I think a little bit of extra testosterone, a little bit of extra manliness thrown in for good measure. It's fucking fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. There's one thing as well I wanted to point out about that song. I didn't pick it up until a few listens in, but I've mentioned many times before, and Sam and Matt and I spoke about this as well, certain vocal lines, it's not necessarily about what's being said, it's about how it gets delivered, that makes it so fucking cool and so catchy and so memorable. There's a part in the first verse on this song where, and I can't quite figure out whether he uses the word secret or sacred, but Mike says, let's assume it's sacred. Mike says, sacred rites lead to altered states. It's just something in the timing and the rhythm and the delivery that I just think is fucking magical. Love the production as well, by the way. And also, if you're seeing this on YouTube, you'll notice it. The Selden Hunt album cover, I think, looks fucking absolutely badass. I mean, that would look killer on a t-shirt, but this gets a double top notch, a beyond top notch. I think the album is going to be in the top 5 of 2025 without a fucking doubt. I've had it for a couple of months now, listened to it many times. It does not get boring. It gets better with every listen. And congratulations to Tombs on signing with Redefining Darkness. Great record label. I think a record label that's going to do hopefully a lot for them. Maybe back to what I said before about, be on a roster where there is an incentive for the label to invest in you. But Mike's going to be on the podcast as well, talking specifically about Tombs. And then Mike Scondado, Mike and I we will definitely try and do that 666 countdown of the best USBM bands before Christmas. We're not going to make you guys wait another fucking 18 months for that. Lots of fantastic feedback on the thrash metal countdown. A lot of requests for a 90s thrash countdown, which I'm more than up for doing, because especially in the early 90s, there were some fucking killer albums and killer bands. So yeah, I think that's probably one we're gonna need to do at some point pretty soon as well. But I appreciate all of the feedback. I appreciate the fact that you guys, dug what we did. I again, it's one of those episodes where, as we were recording it, I knew we were hitting on something pretty goddamn special. All right, another band who has been featured and celebrated on Into the Necrosphere on more than one occasion. We've had Chris Pervelis from this band on the podcast twice, and he'll definitely be back on again at some point. Internal Bleeding out of Long Island, New York, finally putting out, or at the very least announcing their new album. It says here, brutal death metal purveyors Internal Bleeding proudly announced the release of their 7th full-length effort, Settle All Scores, on October the 17th, 2025, via Maggot Stomp. It was mixed by Taylor Young at the Pit Studio and mastered by Brad Boatwright at Audio Siege. Cover art created by Mark Richards. Great cover art, subtle as you can imagine. Always subtlety is something that Internal Bleeding specialize in. Settle All Scores is the name of the record. They put out a single called Crown of Insignificance, and I'll give you guys a quick 90-second or so taste of what that sounds like.
This pretty much has everything that I would have ever wanted from an internal bleeding song. You've got the vocals being traded off in the verse. You've got tons of gang vocals. You've got groove. You've got slam. You've got a fucking killer riff. And then Chris hits us with a bit of a left hand there when he brings in that melodic break right before that next breakdown that we get to. I fucking love it. Absolutely fucking love it. Top notch. Have not heard this whole one yet, but I have high expectations. I really enjoyed the previous Internal Bleeding album, Corrupting Influence. I think it was called Corrupting Influence. There we go. It was. Of course, they got a new vocalist now. What's his name? Steve Worley, handling vocals in the place of Joe Marchese. Hopefully I haven't mispronounced his surname. But I mean, it sounds to me like this is the next step on from Corrupting Influence. And they've been working on this one for a long time. Sounds like it's going to be worth the wait. Really fucking love it. And very much looking forward to hearing what the whole thing is going to sound like when it comes out. Another top notch, guys. As I said, I will also have Chris Pervelis back on the podcast to talk about the record, but absolutely no question about that. A band I've spoken about many times on the News Rant, and I've mused as to why the fuck they're making us wait so long for a new record. Versio Humanitatis, finally now tracking new material. Spanish black metal representatives of Versio Humanitatis shared news that they are currently recording the successor to 2020's Behold the Silent Dwellers at the Empty Hall studio in Madrid, Spain. I fucking loved Behold the Silent Dwellers. It was in my top 5 records of 2020. So super excited about hearing what new music might sound like from them. There is no single there, so I'm not going to listen to anything yet. But just wanted to share my joy with you guys about new Versio Humanitatis on the horizon. That's probably, if we were to estimate, I would say that's probably a 2026 release. But it's going to make 2026 worth at least give us something to look forward to in 2026. All right, we're going to get on to prescription in just a second, but first, my friends, it's time for a fucking scathing swirly of the week. All right, my swirly of the week goes out to every sad, sorry son of a bitch who decided that in wake of the news about Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan passing away, it was their time to use that tragic news, or to use tragedy as a platform for them to remind us all that they are A, our moral superiors, and B, they've got a lot to say politically. Why the fuck you would choose Ozzy Osbourne as an example, dying, to let us all know that he was a Zionist, supported Israel, and was the worst person on the face of the earth, and you're glad he's dead, is beyond me. Why you have to traipse out every possible scandal in Hulk Hogan's history when, a couple of people go, I grew up with a man on television, I watched wrestling when I was a youngster, the icon of Hulk Hogan meant a lot to me, again, is beyond me. I don't necessarily think it's a case of us being sad as such about the guys, about these men passing away. There is an element of that, but there's a big part of it that is about these figureheads that were with us throughout our lives, who inspired us and had I would argue, certainly Ozzy Osbourne's music, Hulk Hogan as a wrestler, had a positive influence on our lives in the way that we were in the way that we were absorbing what they were giving us. If you guys understand what I mean, we saw Ozzy Osbourne either on stage or on television. We saw Hulk Hogan in the ring. We saw him, we saw him on television as well. And the way that we were enjoying them and that we were watching them didn't include celebrating all of the bad things that they did in their lives. And there's no question, these were men with checkered pasts. Ozzy Osbourne tried to kill his wife, shot 17 of the family pets at the height of his alcoholism. Hulk Hogan, never ever let anybody get over in pro wrestling, held multiple careers down, and worst of all, is on video in one of the most vile racist rants you've ever heard in your entire life. These were not perfect men by any stretch of the imagination, but what they meant to us wasn't those things. What they meant to us was what the icon, what their names and what their
what their television personas in the main represented. And then passing is the close of a chapter in our lives, and a passing of time that makes you reflect on a lot of different things. And not only, does it make you sad over the fact that life moves on and that at some point you're going to have to travel that road as well, along with everybody that you love, but it also makes you, think back fondly to the days when, Hulk Hogan turned heel at Bash at the Beach, cut one of the best promos in the history of professional wrestling. It makes you think back to the days where you heard Bark at the Moon or Crazy Train for the first time. And if, as a human being, you decide that instead of celebrating those things, you're instead going to flaunt your moral superiority over us like you've lived a completely and utterly blameless life, you're a miserable fucking wastrel, and we have absolutely nothing in common. Thank fuck for that. That, my friends, is my swirly of the week. Now on to Prescription, another band, incidentally, who were checked out on Is It Sketch over on Reddit. But it says here, Blackened Death Metal Unity Proscription announced the release of their second full-length installment, Desolate Divine, on August the 29th. That comes out via Dark Descent Records. The 9-piece outing was recorded by Kalle Lanto at Sonic Violence Studio in Varkaus, Finland, and mixed and mastered by Dave Otero at Denver's Flatline Studios. A song is available for us to listen to called Gleam of the Morning Star. So let's give it a whirl. That is fucking fantastic. Heavy Morbid Angel influences included. I think that is absolutely fucking brilliant. Song is quite short, so that's why we cut it at about the 1 minute 39 mark. But fucking sick riff, super intense delivery across the board. Drums, vocals, guitars, everything sounds fucking intense. I particularly love that vocalist, who, by the way, goes by the name of Christ Butcher. So, correct attitude in his stage, in selecting a stage name, and certainly correct attitude in delivering them vocal lines, them lyrics. So, yeah, that is another top notch. What a fucking week we're having. It was a little bit quiet for a while, but I kind of feel like, increasingly I'm feeling very bullish about what H2 of this year is going to end up like. Of course, H2 will be irrelevant to the likes of Decibel Magazine because they've already started their top 40 of the year. So you're unlikely to see a lot of these bands feature, but they will almost certainly be in contention on Into the Necrosphere. And by the way, once again, Best of 2025 will be coming your way probably at the end of January. And as always, I'll have my man Nathan on for that. I will have Carl on for that, and I will have Mike Hill on for that. That's always like the best combo for me because we always get a lot of different
viewpoints, a lot of different albums, and it's just a nice way to put a cap on what has certainly over the last couple of years been fucking fantastic years. All right, Hatebreed Unleash Make the Demons Obey single. I have I've not really been all that interested in Hatebreed's music over the course of their last few albums, but I mean, there's absolutely no question. Perseverance, fucking fantastic. The album before that, superb. I mean, that original OG version of Smash Your Enemies, one of the best fucking hardcore songs ever. And I like quite a lot of the other stuff that that came out sort of in the mid 2000s as well. Supremacy, fantastic album, perfect gym music. I kind of get the vibe from the things that Jamie has been saying, and based on his appearance on Into the Necrosphere, that he may be hankering back towards writing music like that. So let's find out. It says here, Hatebreed have debuted a brand new single, Make the Demons Obey, their first new music since the release of their last studio album, Weight of the False Self. No news on when this gets released, when the full-length album is going to be coming out, I should say. But yeah, let's hear whether or not the song cuts the mustard.
Demons obey! Make them all obey! Obey! Feelings flash until they learn! Make them all obey! Obey! Remind them who the darkness serves! Then, fear! Truth is tortured, hope is blood! And here, scripted lies as plague is spread! Polished frauds, plastic saints, and paper gods. Enough to tear the veil of every soul you sought to veil. Enough! Now I make the demons obey. Make them all obey. Obey. Show them I'm no longer prey. Make them all obey. Obey. Damnation listens to me. Fed, fear as hell grins and bears their skin.
Love it. Absolutely fucking love it. And yes, of course, everyone's going to say, oh, it just sounds like every other Hatebreed song. That may be so, but, AC/DC's The Razor's Edge sounds like every other fucking AC/DC album, and I like that too. So this definitely sounds like a step away from the flirtations with more accessible music, metalcore and the like, that I think was misguided, frankly, on Hatebreed's part. You saw that on the Concrete Confessional. You definitely heard a lot of that on The Way to the False Self. Even the self-titled album had a bit of that, a bit too much of that, quite frankly. This, to me, feels like a move back to Satisfaction is the Death of Desire, Supremacy, The Rise of Brutality. That, to me, is prime Hatebreed. This sounds to me like a throwback to prime Hatebreed, and very much looking forward to what a full-length album might sound like. Even the production, actually, kind of has it definitely has echoes of Satisfaction is the Death of Desire, more so than it does any of the other more recent stuff. So good stuff. Right, Agriculture, new song streaming. I can't fucking wait to hear this. In the wake of their forthcoming LP release, The Spiritual Sound, Californians, Agriculture recently put out a brand new track in preview entitled Bodhead Harmer. Now, Agriculture, for those who don't know, are a band who brand themselves ecstatic black metal. If you look at the photo of them frolicking about in the meadows, they look like the kinds of people I would do anything possible to not be friends with and not associate with. The ecstatic black metal of their previous album was completely and utterly atrocious, an embarrassment to music. And frankly, had I been in a position of political authority,
the agriculture calling themselves black metal would be one of the first executive orders I push through, possibly imprisonable for even attempting to do so. Anyway, Bodhead Harma is the name of the song we're going to listen to, because we've heard so much fucking good stuff this week so far. We need to, with the roses must come the thorns, my friends. So let's give this one 60 seconds. Oh my God. This actually makes that previous trash they put out in 2023 sound almost listenable by comparison. I mean, the opening riff, it kind of has a bit of a Smashing Pumpkins, Deftones vibe to it. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but then this, I don't know what the fuck we've just stumbled onto here with the screaming and the whimpering. I mean, that's not even singing, it's whimpering. You know what really blows my mind? I just took a gander as this trash was playing. Agriculture has 35,985 monthly listeners on Spotify. Now, assuming that they don't have enough money, I mean, it certainly doesn't look like any of those people work a full-time job outside of doing their pathetic excuse of a band. But assuming that those are not bought listeners, I find that absolutely mind-blowing. You know, a band like Asheron, for example, I think Asheron has about 2,800 to 3,000 monthly listeners. Tons of the bands that we listen to and celebrate on this podcast barely crack the 10,000 monthly listener mark if they're lucky. And yet somehow 35,000 people, maybe 34,000 of them just listen to it out of morbid curiosity, but 35,000 people on average listen to this nonsense every month. It blows my fucking mind. Blows my mind even more than the complete know-nothing, out-of-the-loop jabronis who call that black metal. So massive thumbs down. You know, I've had moments on this podcast where I've given a band who I didn't like a chance, and I was surprised. You guys have seen those episodes. That band, I doubt, is ever going to surprise me. The only good news that will ever come from them is when it is announced that they've broken up and we never have to hear their fucking bullshit ever again. All right, over on Blabbermouth, the Democrats' Guide to Rock Music. Of course, the vast majority of all the news is people reacting to Ozzy Osbourne passing away. I mean, you got everybody here from the obvious. Tony Iommi, Senator John Fetterman pays tribute to Ozzy Osbourne as well. Pantera, you know, the list goes on. One that I did actually want to share with you guys, because I think of all the tributes that were paid to Ozzy, and you know, rightfully so, of course, I think the one that I thought was the most, not just interesting, but if I may use the word, frankly, the most touching was or came from an unlikely source in Gene Simmons. Now, Gene has always been a pretty cocksure individual, shall we say. You know, he comes across as part arrogant, part moron. But on this occasion, I thought that it was it was a different side to him.
And for some more on the Prince of Darkness, let's bring in Gene Simmons from KISS, another rock icon. Gene, thank you so much for being here. I'm so sorry for your loss. So many of us knew his persona, knew him as a Prince of Darkness, saw little glimpses on the Osbournes. But how do you remember him?
Well, I remember the man. You know, we 1974, we were both trying to forge our paths, and we actually played on the same bill. And I will tell you that the masses, you know, the fans are grieving. What can you say? It's just broken hearts. And when I tell you my heart, my prayers, and millions of others to Sharon and the kids, people think of him as the Prince of Darkness. And, you know, on stage, of course, this huge persona, you know, a giant, but at the same time, a loving father and a dedicated husband. You can say whatever you want about Ozzy. There never was an Ozzy before Ozzy. You can't really point to anybody that says, oh yeah, that's where he came from. He just, scientists call that a singularity, an anomaly. He was just kind of born Ozzy. And as far as I know, his entire life, to thine own self be true, the Greeks say. Ozzy was always Ozzy. Through disco, through foipo, through whatever musical genre there were, Ozzy was always Ozzy, all the way to the end. I mean, it was shocking to see him on his throne, with everybody paying tribute, as well they should, to Sabbath. There wouldn't have been Metallica and lots of other bands. And Ozzy was just, you know, and he was just, you know, giving it all. And you couldn't tell, you couldn't tell. And a week later, devastating.
I think, I don't know if there's anything that I could possibly add to that very articulate, very sincere tribute coming from a very unlikely source in Gene Simmons. Only thing that I would add is when things like this happen, it always reminds me that, you know, not only is time fleeting, but time with the people that we care about is fleeting. I've used this phrase, control the controllable, an awful lot. It's a lesson I learned way later in my life than I should have. But, you know, if you have unresolved beef with somebody, if you are in a situation where you're arguing and bickering with your significant other about trivialities, nonsense, remind yourself of the fact that, you know, this is all going to come to an end, and it's probably going to come to an end sooner than you think. And what no one wants to be left with is regrets. One thing that I do, and I did it on the interview with Sam and with Matt as well, I make a point of telling the people that I care about that I appreciate them, that I love them, why I love them, and why I appreciate them. Because, you know, it could be anything: car accident, cancer. I've lost, you know, friends to heart attacks. I've lost former classmates to suicide. You know, anything could take somebody away, and what you never want to be left with is things unsaid that you wish you had said when you had the opportunity to do so. So I don't want to make this sound like I'm preaching or anything like that, but that's the most sincere and heartfelt thing that I can add to what's already been said. Rest in peace to Ozzy Osbourne and Hulk Hogan. And to you, the Legion, as always, from the bottom of my heart, the most sincere gratitude and thanks for the support that you show this podcast, for the fact that if I'm a day late with an episode, you either bust my balls or, you know, I'm at least sent a bunch of messages asking me whether I'm okay. That means an awful lot. And, you know, whether it's 10 of you listening to an episode or 1,000 of you listening to an episode, you know, the passion always seems to be the same. And it really means an awful lot to me. So wherever it is that you are, my friends, and whatever it is that you are doing, stay safe, stay healthy. If I see you in Norway, fucking great. If you see me at Beyond the Gates, come and say hello. Let's have a beer. But if not, I'll see you bad motherfuckers again next week.